All right, everybody, welcome to the Training and Simulation Tech Showcase. This is our second of the year, and I believe it's our 17th showcase. So we're very excited about it. 2022, if you haven't already seen, we have a full schedule, and we're happy to share about it. So we're going to have three different sessions today. As per our tradition, we're going to have an open topic, which is totally industry agnostic. And then the next two sessions are going to be focused around the industry themes of tonight. And today's industry theme is training and simulation. And of course, within training, we're going to have a mixture of different technologies which fit within that category. And then simulation, also AR, VR, the typical, but also navigation, sensors, human interaction. A little bit of background on us. If anybody doesn't know us, I'm sure many of you have heard this before, so I'll be brief. We're a business development firm for deep tech startups. And our goal is pretty much shared with everybody here is to bring more deep tech to market. What we've really excelled at so far is curating an ecosystem, which includes these amazing people that are on this panel. Many people are in the audience today as well. Which is a combination of, on the one hand, stakeholders, which are empowering for deep tech to reach market, whether it's through capital, for the investors and the members of the community, tech scouts from corporations and tech scouts from government. And on the other hand, the innovators themselves, those that are actually powering, fueling the innovation and pushing forward with emergent technology, with the hope that it will become not just technology, but a successful business. We have events which are monthly around different industry theme, and that's what allows us to anchor our community. Of course, though, beyond that, the different stakeholder members of the community are looking for different types of technologies. They explain to us exactly what they're looking for, and we do our best to share relevant profiles from different companies. The hope is that, of course, that if there's mutual interest, then business will follow, whether it's in the form of a potential investment, potential private contract, potential contract, collaboration, merger and acquisition, and the many other ways which corporations and government can engage with startups. We're part of a larger ecosystem of companies that are providing business development services, and specifically on the biz dev side. We help companies with strategy, marketing materials, creating awareness around their technologies, and establishing these awesome technologies as prominent in their different fields, helping them refine their pitch, the events themselves. And of course, we have some other activities as well, which we'll just touch upon briefly. I'll introduce Deep Tech Strategies, which is something we haven't talked about in the past, but one of our divisions in our company is the Strategies division, which helps companies to work backwards, actually to start at the end game, which would be the end user, and not to be afraid to engage with your end users early on, even when you're still in idea stage or ideation, because we know that the end users, if you're eventually building technology to be put in the hands of a potential customer with a real need, then what you want to do is you want to talk to them early and you want to talk to them often if possible. And of course, if the technology is already ready, then you definitely want to speak to the end users. But the idea here is to take companies that are strong on innovation and to turn them into companies that are strong on business. To have a conversation, I want to talk about three different differentiations that we make within strategies, which is between goals, objectives, and KPIs. Goals and objectives and KPIs on most presentations are merged as if they are one. We like to treat them as separate. Goals answer the question of where you actually would like to go, where do you want to be, whereas objectives talk to you about what the way is to get there. So if you had the idea of this is my vision, be here, then your objective is your path to getting there. And the KPIs is how you measure your successes. Now, this one is the most, I guess, used and abused term. KPIs should be something which is supposed to be measuring success and something that indicates to you that you're on the right path. Now, of course, KPIs are subjective. Well, they're objective in that you're going to reach them, but they're subjective in that you set them. You gave them meaning. These KPIs don't necessarily have meaning to anybody else, but when you establish meaning for them, they are able to indicate to you that you're going in the right direction. Of course, that KPI should be based on experience or based on others' experience, and you shouldn't be afraid to ask. Along with strategies, we have a studios team, we have funding team, which focuses on both non-dilutive as well as dilutive raises. We have MOU Club, which focuses on getting pilot contracts within the United States Air Force through a specific program called AFWorks. And we focus on growth through Deep Tech Showcase, Deep Tech Marketing, and Showroom. And we work with a very large range of industries. Basically, you could look at all the industries that are not life sciences, fintech, and consumer goods, and you would find that we have a touch upon most of them. But of course, if you look on our website, you'll see different. We'll talk about the calendar in a second and see the industries we are most prevalently involved in. When we work with companies, our gold standard is a triple approach, which is what we call the gold standard for business development, which helps with a mixture of the activities that we bring together with a showcase, with our marketing division, Deep Tech Marketing, and also Showroom, which is a merger between marketing, networking, and events in order to help companies to create substantial business gains. Marketing, just in a word, helps companies to generate awareness around their solution and engagement with their potential customers, whether they're at prototype stage or already have a product ready to go. Deep Tech Showcase, you're part of it now, you know exactly what it is. It's an ecosystem and it is anchored in events. And Showroom is to help companies make trade events, which are such missed and wasted opportunities so often, to turn into actual business gains. That's our team. We have blessed with a really great squad of people. Really feels like a family, and we're happy to have the extended family with it throughout the showcase community. This is our calendar for the year. We're at February 24th, the training simulation. Next up is microelectronics. But as you look through the year, we have a ton of systems and space and some really great in between events. And I would like to also mention as a pre-release, parallel to the CES this year, we're going to be hosting what we're going to call the Deep Tech Summit, which is an opportunity, even though you're at the CES and there are 100,000 other people there, to find the deep tech companies that are going to be presenting there and are going to be attending. So if you're interested in it, shoot us an email. Happy to give you more details, especially as they crystallize.
Hey, Josh, just a quick comment on that CES. I'm working with a group called Startup Nevada that runs the biggest angel venture capital group inside Nevada, which obviously CES is in Las Vegas. So I'd like to connect you with them at some point. They're a great group, and I think it'll help you and also the startup companies that go to CES, because they're looking at creating little mini pitch events, startup events for startups that come to Vegas.
Oh, awesome! We're going to be doing 6 of them. We're going to be doing 6 pitch events at the actual CES. So we're not the CES, offsite of the satellite event CES. So Bob, please connect us. That'd be great.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
I don't mean to add make this too long here, but also Josh, I want to connect you with South by Southwest as well in March. I'll be there personally as a judge panel as well. So I'll connect you with them. And we talked about CES previously, so I'll help you on that too. Okay. So,
awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
So up next, March 31st, about a month from today, we are going to be hosting the Microelectronics Showcase. So stay tuned if you want to know more about that. Today's panels are excellent, and they're already helping us out as we as we learn from Han and Bob. We have Bob Christopher, Diamond Edge Ventures, USACO Group, Hanco. You have Wazers here from Next Year Ventures, from TDK Ventures, Tina Desikohawan, from Allstate Strategic Ventures, Reese Schroeder, Harry Meyer from City of Mesa, Joe McCrae from the 52nd Communication Squadron of the United States Air Force, and from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and a former Air Force officer himself, Ed Laverdue. Companies pitching at this session are Ready Wireless, Coherent, Zeta Labs, MagWorks Vision, and Magino Inc. So I'm going to skip through. We have awesome panelists joining us for the second session, but we're going to introduce them as it comes up. And just to take a quick peek at the companies that are going to be pitching under the training technology. And then again, for today's panelists in the simulation technology, and then the companies pitching in simulation technology. So without further ado, I'll hand back the controls to Yuval, and we're going to get started with the first presentation. we good on time, or can we do a quick roundtable?
Yeah, so I was about to say we had took me a second to unmute. We have a few minutes till the first presentation, so if you'd like, we could just do a short roundtable and hear a little bit more from the panelists.
So awesome. So let's do it. Bobby, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Bob Christopher, I'm with Diamond Edge Ventures. So we're the venture capital arm of Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings. Been here for just over 3 years. And before that, I was the Panasonic in charge of innovation. So nice to meet everybody.
Awesome. Hanko from Yusako.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Always pleasure and honor to be here. Han Ko, Yusako Group, we are an international venture capital company, and we're based out of USA, but we have office in Seoul, South Korea. And we do a lot of things. One of our signature programs that we have in April is bringing actual Asian companies to USA. I'm sorry, from South Korea to USA. So yeah, stay tuned. Thank you.
Is it just South Korean, or is it all over Asia?
Actually, just 5 South Koreans this time. Yeah,
oh,
5
cool.
South
Awesome.
Korean companies from different sectors. So yeah, it'll be. We also plan to have online hybrid as well, but they will be actually flying here first time since pandemic. So I'm excited just to see them. Right.
Right. Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
So that was Hanko from the Soccer Group. Yoav Weiser from Next Gear Ventures.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yoav Weiser, Next Gear Venture is an Israeli venture fund that is focused on early stage startups in the mobility space. Not limited ourselves only to the auto tech. For us, mobility is also smart city, it's logistics, it's energy. So if you have any great idea, you can contact me. Thank you.
Awesome. Yoav. Tina.
Hi, everyone. Tina Tosukova. I'm the investment director from TDK Ventures. We are a corporate ventures arm of TDK Corporations. Our fund is $200 million AUM, focusing specifically on deep tech company, such as those in energy transition, digital transformation, and clean tech, and so on and so forth. Typically early stage investment. Sometimes we lead, sometimes we just co-invest.
Awesome. Awesome. Next up, Reese from Allstate.
Hello, everyone. Reese Schroeder. I've been with Allstate Strategic Ventures for a little bit more than 2 years. Prior to that, I was managing director and co-founder of Tyson Ventures in the food space. And then for 15 years prior to that, I was managing director of Motorola Ventures and Motorola Solutions Venture Capital. So I have kind of a varied technology and a little bit of a food background. We're Allstate Strategic Ventures is the corporate venture capital arm of Allstate Insurance Company, and we invest typically Series A to C. Check sizes can be from 1 to 10 million, and that's a quick update on us. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming. Harry Meyer with the best digital background of us all.
Sure. Harry Meyer, Deputy CIO for Innovation and Smart Cities with Mesa, Arizona. We're a 500,000 plus city and have a ton of smart city projects, and I oversee them all.
Cool. Awesome. Joe McRae.
He's going to be joining us a little later. He's going to be hopping in and out.
Okay. Do we have Ed on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Can't bring the Zoom page up, but I'm phoning it in. Ed Laverdure with Inventav Solutions in Edmond, Oklahoma. Our lane is helping researchers connect with defense technology research opportunities, whether those are SIVers or sitters. Across the board technology from things for the Space Force. I see we've got AR, VR training in here. I know that StrikeWorks has an interest in that. And we've got great connections with AFWorks too. We'll help you find the right MOU partner if you've got a defense related project.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah, by the way, I'm always shocked to find out how much money the United States Air Force has invested in AR/VR. I think in the last couple of years, they invested about $80 million only through cyber projects. So interesting. See what's coming out of the Air Force as well. Okay, so I think that concludes our roundtable. Thanks for joining us, everybody. What we're going to do is we're going to start. I think we have 5 pitches for the open topic, and then we'll move on to the next one, and we'll do our best to introduce everybody as things come up. So pitching first, what do we have up first, Evo?
We're gonna start with Imagine Arrow by Imagino. And Kevin's already on the line, so we should be all set.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Floor is yours.
Thank you much. Hello, I'm Kevin Halverson, Chief Science Officer of Imagine Arrow. Imagine Arrow began with the support of Imagino Incorporated, a venture-backed incubator funded by a family office located in Bellevue, Washington. Today, I'll be talking about extrusion. Extrusion is a technology which has existed for over a century and has many uses that you may or may not be familiar with, but you encounter every single day. What I want to share with you is a new and exciting way to use this old technology. Next. Before we complicate things, let's talk about what extrusion is. The simplest explanation of extrusion is a process that forces a material through a shaped die to produce a form like a pipe or a bar. Extruded parts are used in framing and trim, brackets and fasteners, enclosures, heat exchangers, and many other 2D shapes. We love extruded materials in manufacturing because of their low cost, high strength, and versatility. They're able to be produced quickly at high volumes, and the variety of shapes is limited only by the size of the die circle. This limitation, however, is where opportunities for improvements come in. Larger extruded structures often require fasteners, adhesives, or welding, adding both time and cost to the product. Our goal at Imagine Arrow was to develop a solution to address the inefficient and costly manufacturing processes used in aviation. We first looked at all the existing technologies. Next. Sheet metal has been one of the most prevalent materials used to fabricate airframe for the last 100 years. Though highly regarded, this process is costly as it requires considerable labor and complex fixturing to secure the unassembled parts. Next. The foam and composite manufacturing approach came about as a response to the requirements of fixtures used in sheet metal fabrication. Though the foam and composite fixtures are inexpensive, this technique results in even more labor being required to achieve acceptable finished product. Next. Molded and layup composite fabrication technologies utilizes expensive materials, requires considerable mold preparation, and has lengthy curing periods, making it inappropriate for high volume manufacturing. Next. Like molded and layup composite technology, mandrel-wound composite fabrication has the exact same issues of complex tooling, expensive raw materials, and long cycle times. Next. Our new manufacturing process, which we've named extrusion injections, has several advantages. These include reduced labor, fast cycle time, and finish assemblies at near raw materials cost. Though developed for the aviation market, we recognize that there are many uses of our technology. Next. Our process begins with solid shape extrusion tooling. The material is then extruded and cut to length. The extrusions are assembled using self-fixturing hem and slot features. This allows for a quick and precise assembly of the structure. Additional pieces are added as the assembly progresses. Next. Additional components are added. Next slide, please. Additional components are added as required until the assembly is ready to place into a simple mold, which requires no special preparation. Next. The mold assures the precise reproduction of the final shape. The internal voids are filled with a 2-part injected core material, which expands and locks the extruded elements together. The completed structure has considerable compression and tension strength due to the mechanical and adhesive bond between the foam core and the extruded skins. Next. The finished product is removed from the mold after a short period of time and is ready for post-processing steps such as painting or powder coating. The final product is ready within minutes. This quick cycle time avoids impacting the flow of the manufacturing process. Next. When compared to other manufacturing technologies, extrusion injection saves both time and materials and is appropriate for high volume manufacturing. Next. There are many additional applications for extrusion injection, including residential and commercial construction, other forms of transportation and conveyances, as well as aerospace and military uses. Next.
30-second warning.
Thank you. We are seeking partnerships with both investors and innovators across many different verticals. Next. Thank you, and we look forward to addressing any questions you may have.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Kevin.
Nice to meet you.
Mitsubishi Chemical, we're a large producer of composites and carbon fiber. I think we're the biggest, actually.
I believe you are.
And I have a couple of questions. Before that, I came from Panasonic, so I was involved in a lot of the avionics efforts we have. We're big in avionics. Couple of questions, one of which is, seems like this, so if I understand your tech correctly, you're replacing rivets with this new type of extrusion, fold and seam. What are you calling this?
We call it a hemming process, but yes, it provides mechanical fixturing up until the point in time which the extruded assemblies go into the mold. Then the mold has core material injected into it, which locks the products together, both mechanically and adhesively. And it was, like I say, it was originally developed for aviation applications, particularly lifting and control surfaces, but it has many other use cases. In any lineal shape, which requires complexity in 2 dimensions and less complexity in the third, it's ideal for our process.
So you could do this then with carbon composites, right?
Absolutely.
The material it's not limited to.
It's material agnostic, though generally extrusions are done with plastics and aluminum as the base candidates. Any material which can be extruded or any core material which can be injected are possible candidates.
Do you have, so imagine you must have machinery then that it's uniquely designed to achieve this type of hemming?
Well, the extruded parts, the machine requirements are really no different than any other extruded parts. The technology of the die is slightly different, but it's really an engineering detail, not a difference in the machinery. The invention, if you will, is really the concept of using the locking structures and the internal expanding. And the internal expanding is really important because that's what provides all the fixturing and the final shape forming. For example, the parts coming out of the die may not be exactly the shape of the finished product, but after being placed in the mold and expanded, they then form that shape. And this allows things that have non-parallel lineal shapes. So you can have a tapered extrusion, which normally extrusions can't do tapering, but with our process, you can.
Has this been certified and approved for avionics? Where are you at?
It's not for avionics, it's for aviation. It's in process of being built into a first aviation platform now, proof of concept platform. And then we're looking for other use cases outside of that. And one that we're looking at pretty heavily right now is actually fabrication of hangar space. So a lot of the panels, instead of being corrugated metal panels, these are structural panels which provide both thermal insulative properties, but also provide raceways for conduits and other materials that need to be run through the structure.
Okay, great. Love to talk to you offline, but thanks for the information.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Kevin, I guess I'll take it up, right? It's okay. Kevin, good presentation.
Thank you.
We recently had a experience with another company in similar industry, not exactly the same. My question to you is that how does the competition landscape look like in your product? I mean, your product services.
Certainly extrusion's been around forever. It's one of the oldest processes used in manufacturing, which is great because it's mature. It's down to virtually raw material costs. Extruded aluminum, for example, is but 10% more expensive than raw billet aluminum. So that part is great. It's a mature industry. We know how to do it. Everybody knows how to use it, but it's limited in what it can do. So this is a technology that allows it to go into the next era, we feel. And particularly like aerospace, particularly aviation, has mass constraints. So mass is king when it comes down to aviation. And this has structural capabilities using the foam core, depending upon the density you use, to make it quite applicable for aerospace applications. As far as competition, there's many other products, techniques that can manufacture aerospace products, but they're all labor intense, they're all expensive, and they often include very expensive materials. So yeah, competition, but we don't think they're directly competitive.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
You all with the last question.
Kevin, a quick question. How do you compare yourself to the traditional methods in terms of pricing, the price per unit?
Considerable reduction in cost. Some studies we did on some of the aviation components that we're using for our test case, we were finding a labor cost reduction of 25x. So material costs lower, similar to conventional sheet metal fabrication, but labor costs 25 times lower. And labor does dominate a lot of aviation because it's low volume construction. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And be sure to leave your information in the chat so those who want to be in touch can be.
Will do. Thanks again.
Up next is Zeta Labs, and pitching is Pawan Hodge, who's the COO. Pawan, do we have you on the line?
Yes, you do. You guys can hear me?
Yep. Floor is yours.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Yuval, I'm assuming you're going to be controlling the slides, right?
Yeah, I believe he is. Yuval?
Okay, great. Perfect. So, hi, everybody. Great to meet everyone. Yuval, can you just go to the next slide? So, a little bit about Zeta Labs. We're a New York City-based startup. We've been around for about 2 years. We are in the data and AI space, and particularly a SaaS provider in the data management space. Elliot Polanco, who's on the call, is the founder of the company. I am the CEO, and we both come with 20 plus years of experience in financial services, as well as in the data domain space. So, Yuval, next slide, please. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Yuval, can you? Oh, perfect, thanks. So companies are undergoing a massive digitization strategy, as most of you probably are aware of. They're holding on to hordes of data or have access to tons of data. And they're leveraging the cloud to create a one-stop shop for hosting their data so they can run analytics on it. As the cloud market is expected to be close to $1 trillion in the next few years. Now, companies never really had a good grasp of their data assets, even while it was on-prem. They didn't know what data they had, what it actually meant, what format do they need to put it on, nevertheless run jazzy analytics on it. Now, hosting data is really cheap on the cloud. As a result, companies not only move their existing data there, but they're also adding a lot of additional data. And this really exacerbates the entire data management problem. We coined this term data governance, which is really the foundation for a very successful digitization strategy, and also happens to be the #1 reasons why many of these cloud migrations fail. Yuval, next slide, please. So data governance as a process is a pain for organizations. It's a highly manual, iterative process and uses a lot of subject matter experts. And each one of them are actually creating customized rules-based processes for every new data source. The existing software in the market are great at point solutions, but they don't really connect to each other very well. Neither do they provide a holistic effectiveness. And every time a data source is added, you have to repeat the entire process again. So institutional memory is not really being stored, nor is it being leveraged. As volumes of data continue to increase, data governance as a process just is unable to meet that scale, which is actually what led us to start Zeta Labs. Next page, please, Yuval. So our vision at Zeta Labs is to be the is to be the automatic continuous data governance solution for cloud-enabled organizations. Now, we've come up with a way to codify how data governance professionals actually work, what their workflow is, how they classify, inventory, and write rules to clean data. We've also built a data genome or a knowledge base, which uses AI to learn information, meta information about an organization's data. The result is that we've created a reusable workflow that gets smarter over time. So the more data that flows through our system, the smarter the system gets. As a matter of fact, we'll be rolling out a white paper very soon with one of our board of directors, who also happens to be the chief data officer at Scotiabank and is chairman of an organization called EDM, which is an organization of CDOs of large North America-based organizations. Anyhow, as an application, we exist on an existing customer's cloud. As you see here, we connect to most data sources out there, and we output the data for analytics engines or upstream analytics products to use, such as Databricks, maybe Snowflake, or Tableau for that matter. Next slide, please. Well, so from a process standpoint, what efficiencies are we trying to build? So the governance process in a traditional approach typically runs about 30 weeks, about 12 people at about $700,000 for every new data source. We are able to reduce that to 5 weeks with half the number of resources and 1/5 of the cost. Of course,
30-second warning.
Sure. And lastly, I just want to talk about what our ask is. So what we're trying to do is we want to raise $2 million to build out our product and deliver to clients that we've already sold the product to. We'll be getting to 1 million ARR by June of Q2. We're already at 700,000 right now. And we have 2 clients who are listed in the active engagement section who we are with and in an active POC currently. So with that, I'll just open up the floor to any questions.
Go ahead, Jan. You can lead us.
Sorry. Yep. Thank you. Quick question. It's great, actually, great approach. Just the data governance that costs a whole lot of money. I think you have a great solution here. What is like your IP, intellectual property? Do you have any protection on that one, or?
So hi, this is Elliot Blanco. I'm the CEO and the founder. So we are actually in the process. We have about 13 different patentable claims around this concept of the data genome. So we're still a little bit early in the patent application process, but we have identified through working with our IP attorneys, we have listed out kind of 13 very unique and distinct claims about how we're enabling this autonomic, continuous active data governance approach, which we think is pretty unique in the marketplace and isn't really done anywhere.
Right. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Oh, sorry. Did I step in front of somebody else?
I'll go next. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Reese. Just question on this. So you mentioned IBM in one of your backgrounds. IBM's got a lot of work they're doing in digitalization. We're actually working with them in Japan. I'm curious how this is working in connection with IBM and even SAP, that's doing a big project around digital twins. Are you integrating with those companies? How do big organizations like us look at your company in comparison to these groups, and how do we think about you versus them? I'm just trying to get an idea of the lay of the land.
So if you think about all these different software solutions, like your ERP vendor, your CRM vendor, your product management system, right, your customer lifecycle management system. So think about all your different business processes that generate tons and tons and tons of data. And the more you go into digitization, so the more that let's say if you deploy SAP fully, right, and SAP has like 20 different modules, but think about how difficult it is to stitch your finance system, your accounting system, your ERP system, your product system, your customer system. Everything creates data. Most organizations do not know what to do with all that data, right? It is a mess out there. And so that's where you have this data governance process where it takes an army of people just to say, okay, I get it. This customer data in SAP matches the customer data in Salesforce, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to basically simplify, like teach machines how to do what data governance professionals can do, just so you can organize, collect all this data so that when you put it in the cloud, you can create reports, run learning and analytics on it.
Isn't that a challenge with your trying to harmonize your API structure, because everyone's API is different and you're going to have to obviously suck all this information in, harmonize it, make it sync up correctly. So I think there's going to be it's a lot of API work there, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
So
how do you-
less on the APIs and more on the data. Let's say the data generated by the APIs. So think about the outputs for all these different business processes that spit out logs and records and tables and spreadsheets and files. So if you think about like your classic cloud migration project, and this is what companies do today, they have all of this data that's sitting on very expensive storage in their data center, and they're saying, take it all and move it into the cloud. But once they move all this data into the cloud, where you can take advantage of these economies of scale, and it's very cheap to store the cost, it's very low cost storage. Now they say, well, can I use it? Can I analyze and access my data? And I can't because it's a mess, right? So this is where we kind of come in and say, leave your data on the cloud, we'll scan everything on the cloud and we'll help you harmonize it and automate those harmonization processes so you can actually get to intelligence out of your data as fast as possible.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
So
Reese, you wanna ask the last question?
my question, I'll just ask one, is your solution useful in a hybrid environment where you've got on-prem and cloud?
Yeah, so most of the compute that we do is we have done different sources. We deployed both on-prem and on the cloud. Obviously, if you deploy on the prem, it's dependent on a lot of infrastructure that can be pretty expensive. So we tend to enable or ask companies to do things on the cloud just because you have scalable pay-as-you-go compute, which makes it a little bit more cost-effective to run these kinds of services to just harmonize all the data. But it's not necessarily a limitation. We can absolutely run both on-prem and on the cloud.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
So that was Zeta Labs, and now we're moving on to MagWorks Vision Incorporated. Presenting for them will be Michael Pickles, CEO.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce MagWorks Vision and our technologies to you. So our tagline is bringing a brighter tomorrow, and our focus is on vehicle lighting, as you will see. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So the issue is, the problem is the automotive lighting market is changing very rapidly. Automotive mobility and industrial markets are rapidly shifting to efficient, smarter, and better vehicles. The market's demands are changing drastically, and the lighting market on top of that has seen a major consolidation, leading to a massive mismatch between the supply and demand in the marketplace. Next slide, please. So EVs and mobility applications very much require modern, energy-efficient, durable technologies. Standard off-the-shelf products no longer meets those requirements, and market specifically requires custom builds, specifically designed high performance and durability products. Next slide, please. So not a simple problem. While simple LED lighting, such as indoor lighting and flood lamps or fog lamps, are rather simple to execute, highly controlled vehicle illumination, such as signals and headlamps and the like, are exactly the opposite. They require very high levels of expertise, optical design, materials, thermodynamics, electronics, and as well as very keen understanding of regulatory know-how, because they're all regulated throughout the world. Lighting for the new era of mobility needs to be energy efficient, lightweight, durable, high performance, as well as ecologically friendly, which is not a trait of the industry. So what does the industry need? It needs smaller, lighter weight, lower power consumption, lower cost, of course, increased durability, ecological construction. And that's precisely what MagWorks Vision brings to market through our unique solutions. So as we like to point out, the lighting industry has not yet anticipated this change in the market while we have. Next slide, please. So technology. So MagWorks Vision brings automotive tier 1 levels of technology, product design, and regulatory know-how to the rapidly expanding electric vehicle, automated vehicle, and mobility sectors. Introduces proprietary ultra-lightweight, highly energy efficient, environmentally friendly technologies while providing superior robustness. And this uniquely addresses the energy consumption, weight reduction, and environmental factors we have already mentioned, currently providing major performance improvements on top of it all. Our proprietary magnesium and optical silicon solutions address both current as well as future environmental requirements, unlike anybody else in this market, and we can say that with certainty. And it puts us in a unique market position. Please go ahead. Our patent portfolio, I won't go through them unless you have questions later on, but we have granted patents and pending patents. So what do we bring to the market? In a nutshell, without going through all this: brighter, smaller, lighter, simpler, more robust, and efficient lighting. Next slide, please. So this is a few examples of our programs. This is the Aptera upcoming ultra energy efficient EV that is going to reach the market later on this year. Solar charged, up to 1,000 miles of range, and we will provide the entirety of the exterior vehicle lighting package utilizing our proprietary technologies. Next slide, please. Another example of what we're doing: replacing the lamp you see on the left, an existing LED headlamp, with a which is heavy and inefficient, with a far more efficient lamp you see on the upper right, which is much smaller, much lighter, and on top of that, far more powerful in its illumination. And with this, we bring major improvements in performance, energy consumption, lighter weight, which also adds to the durability of the product because it's subject to high shock, substantial reduction of power consumption, which makes it obviously suitable for EVs. As I just indicated, our materials are durable and ecologically sound, and addresses the needs of the market moving forward. And as you can see, vehicles, whether it be lawnmowers, vehicles of all types, are shifting to EV, so power consumption is critical. And this positions us with this company as these are, for instance, Toro products, Boss being a division of Toro. Next slide, please. Our competitive market analysis, the landscape, you can see the upper tranche is our field, and the lower is the automotive OEM field. So starting with the OEMs at 22.7 billion and growing, rapidly growing figure. Our area is 1.2 billion. As you can see, there are only truly 4 competitors in our field. So the demand far and away exceeds and is growing the supply base. Another issue, as I indicated,
30-second warning.
Much in the way of issues in the market. So next slide, please. So this is our expertise, over 100 years of expertise. I can go later, and then the last slide, please. Last slide, please. Our contact information for those who would like to follow up. Thank you for the opportunity. And I will be delighted to answer any questions.
Tina, go ahead.
Yes, well, thanks for your presentation. I probably want to ask about the go-to-market strategy. Are you trying to compete with tier 1 and becoming the tier 1 yourself, or are you, supplying and working with tier 1?
Precisely the opposite. Just so you know, my background is 40 years at the tier 1 level and OEM, 30 years in lighting at the tier 1 level and OEM, and that's exactly what we do not. Actually, we shy away from all tier 1 applications. Our market is the growing, rapidly growing, exploding EV market. And that's where the disconnect is, because the tier 1s are focused on the OEMs, and there is more work that they can handle. And all these new suppliers are finding that there's hardly anybody there that can do what they need to do. And they need OEM grade design and development and know-how, and it's just not available. It's a very interesting situation. Did I answer your question, and you have a follow-up on that?
Yes, and what's the current ask?
Our current ask right now, we're asking for $1 million.
$4 million?
Yes, and that's we're in the process of raising those monies. And as indicated, you see lighting everywhere, and you think that it's widely available, but it's exactly the opposite. It's available to the OEMs, but not available to the independent lighting companies. Vehicle companies, and that's why the majority of the vehicles are now employing. Independent EVs you see in the marketplace are employing off-the-shelf lighting, but that has created its own problem, is that they are overwhelming those manufacturers, so there's not enough product to go around. So I could say not necessarily at the chip level, but it's a similar problem, as many manufacturers will not be able to get lighting products, and if you know no lights, the vehicles are illegal, they cannot be sold. in the case of chips, they cannot be put on the road. In the case of lighting, they cannot be solved. So it's a very similar problem that's not being reported, but it's very real.
Thank you.
Harry.
Thank you. So how does your costs of manufacturing and materials compare to existing LED technologies? And kind of a follow-on question: what other areas have you looked into for besides mobility?
Oh, first of all, our designs are far simpler in execution than existing OEM tier 1 type applications. That's what I've been working on for many years to be candid with you, to promote this within the tier 1 community, and just it hasn't worked. When I saw the development of the EVs, what created the impetus, if you will, for creating my works vision to go independent and to cater to that market, because I realized what was going on. I know the market quite well. So your question was, if I may, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, what other areas, specifically, in my purview, street lighting is an area where the costs add up with the energy consumption, over the course of the whole city.
There are quite a few players in there. Our focus is anything that basically is mobility, that is aircraft, boats, if you will, marine, of course, any type of vehicular application. That's our focus, because there's where if you put a vehicle on the road, that's particularly one that has to meet regulations, most everybody just shies away from it because people just don't understand the regulations. And if you make a small mistake, it can lead to physically not being able to sell the vehicle. Fortunately for us, we are very comfortable. It's like, we're not nuclear, the rocket scientists, but we know our business. So for us, the regulations after so many years are come as a second, as a normal standard operation SOP, if you will.
Okay, Bob with the last question.
Please go ahead.
Sure. What are a couple of things? What are your thermal dynamics like in your module? I imagine it's hermetically sealed because it's OEM grade. And the second question I want to ask is two questions, and I'll leave it at that. Is the what's your coating like for your lenses? Do you have any anti-fouling, anti-snowing?
Actually,
coating? Yeah.
If I may, so the first part, our housings are made of magnesium, so our efficiency is extremely high, and compared to what normal, the normal approach is you make the housings out of plastic, so they are like, if you may recall, easy bake ovens. They hold the heat inside. We dissipate the heat to the outside, so our efficiency is much greater. Optical silicon does not require coatings, just so you know. And as far as snow removal or ice and the like, which we're doing the snowplow, that's a major advantage because it's also very highly temperature resistant. So we can heat it to the maximum of the LED temperature without affecting the performance of the LED, excuse me, of the silicon. In a nutshell, an LED can get up to 135 degrees C, where plastics can only take less than 120. So you have a problem. So you have to watch out for that. Silicon goes up to 200 degrees. So you cannot, the LED technology cannot exceed the resistance, the temperature resistance of the silicon. So we can actually pipe all the heat into the lens and thereby self-defrost. That's one of our assets. So, and then silicon is impervious to UV. So you don't need the UV coatings you need in plastics. So you can leave it 10 years outdoors, nothing happens. Same thing with low temperature and high temperature. As you say, it goes up to 200. So you can live in Death Valley, you can leave it in the Arctic, and you will pick it up 10 years later, it will feel the same as the day you made it, or you left it there, I should say. Did I answer your question to your satisfaction?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. As Michael,
my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course.
Cheers.
Michael Pickles from MagWorks Vision. And we're moving on to Coherent. And presenting from Coherent will be Dr. Roberto DiSalvo.
Okay, am I good to go?
Yes, we hear you good.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Roberto DiSalvo, and I'll be talking to you about quantum computing. Next slide, please. So quantum computing leverages quantum mechanics, arguably the most successful scientific theory of the 20th century. And it's the only known model for computing that can offer exponential speedup over today's computers. Quantum computers right now are in the experimental phase with several teams working on them. Next slide, please. The basic unit of information in a quantum computer is the quantum bit or qubit. Physically, a qubit can be an electron, a photon, a trapped ion, or atom, but also artificial atoms like transmons or flux bits. You can see an example of one there on the right-hand side. And unlike classical bits, qubits can exist in a state of superposition, and they can entangle with other qubits. That's the source of their exponential computing power. However, qubits are very fragile and can be easily disturbed by thermal and electromagnetic noise. The technical term is decoherence. Next slide, please. The challenge we have for practical quantum computing, as you can see from this image of IBM's Q computer, is that current quantum computers are large, complex machines, and qubits require a hard vacuum, cryogenic, and radio frequency protected environment, and access to quantum computers is only via the cloud. Next slide, please. What's the current state of the technology? Let's take a look at this image by John Martinez of Google, and it's a map of qubit quality versus quantity. And you can see from this image that right now the current technologies are represented by that little black dot on the left-hand side of the chart. And the technology roadmap follows the numbers towards the right-hand side of the green area. With current technology, that's going to require approximately tens of thousands of qubits with error rates of 1 in 1,000. But we believe we can do better than that. We can stretch that green area to the left-hand side and achieve quantum computing sooner than the roadmaps that others have put forward. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? Well, we plan to do that using topological insulators. This is a new class of materials that was discovered in 2007 and received the Nobel Prize in 2016. Qubits made from topological insulators intrinsically protect quantum states, and they can work at ambient temperature and dramatically reduce the number of qubits needed to handle error correction. Next slide, please. Our team has been working on the topological insulator qubit since 2017 and have several competitive advantages, starting with a robust intellectual property strategy. In fact, we've submitted several patent applications and are continuing to submit additional provisional applications. Also, the ability to read and write to the qubit using only voltage and current measurements. We don't need complex microwave technology like other applications. And the form factor, making our qubits comparable and compatible with semiconductor technology, which will enable us to develop portable quantum computers. Next slide, please. Currently, there's a dozen people on our team, and together with me is Alton Reich, who is a co-founder, and our CTO is Professor David Carroll. He is also the director for the Center of Nanotechnology at Wake Forest University and is one of the first scientists who started working with topological insulators and realized that they would have an application for quantum computing. Next slide, please. Up until now, we've received over $1 million from NASA to develop these materials, and we've received 5 consecutive SBIR contracts from the Air Force Research Laboratory to develop topological insulators specifically for quantum processors. Currently, we've received all of our funding from government agencies, but are reaching out to investors to accelerate our technology development. Next slide, please. Based on market estimates by McKinsey, the value at stake in quantum computing in the 2030s will reach $450 billion for pharmaceuticals, chemicals, automotive finance. The unique feature of our technology is that room temperature operation unlocks a completely new segment of the market for embedded, integrated, and deployable devices. And this is something that no one else has looked at. And so it's been excluded from all these estimates. And we believe this is where we're really pursuing value. Next slide, please. So taking a look from 30,000 feet, you can see this map, and every technology that's been considered as an application for quantum computing, like cryptography, finance, logistics, AI, scientific computing, and so forth, are multi-billion-dollar industries. And any quantum computing application here is likely to bring substantial value. Next slide, please.
30-second warning.
Okay. In 2021, market activity has been picking up. There's been almost $2 billion in startup activity. And for example, IonQ has raised $600 million in its SPAC. So there's a tremendous amount of activity, and people realize the incredible applications of this technology. Next slide, please. Our business model is to begin with local and deployable processors for mission-critical edge computing applications, and that's where the interest from the Air Force is coming from. Quantum cloud computing is a play we will pursue, especially because of our remarkably lower infrastructure costs, and in the future move on to commercial desktop and mobile processors. Our financial model estimates approximately $5 million of revenue in 2023, and then growing thereafter, reaching $700 million by 2030. Next slide, please. We are asking for $5.9 million for initial investment, and this equity will be matched by government funds from DoD programs that support strategic technological development. With a cumulative war chest of 10 million, we can be on our way to bringing you the future of quantum computing. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I'll answer your questions.
Yes, hi. In terms of your, I didn't see that you mentioned, when do you think you'll have the first product ready?
I apologize. The sound was very garbled. I didn't understand.
I asked, in terms of your roadmap, when do you think you'll have the first product ready?
First product?
He's asking the famous quantum question. When do we get this?
Well, we believe we will have a functioning processor in 2025, 2026. Right now, we're working on the quantum gates themselves, so the CNOT gate and the Hadamard gate, and because ours is basically a gate process, type processor. And right now, we're working on registers, like I said, CNOT gates and Hadamard gates. So we expect in the next 4 years to have a processor that's a demonstrator.
Thank you.
Hello, Han Ko here. Good presentation, and as a person who is closely watching quantum computing's progress, I really appreciate your effort here. I have a question as the investment side of it. You mentioned the 5.9 million you're trying to raise and government matching program. So how does it work? So do we one-to-one matching by government, or how does it work?
Yeah, so the Air Force and NASA have several matching programs. So if you bring in outside funds from investors, they will match. So there is a program called TAC-FEE that matches dollar for dollar, and STRAT-FEE, which matches 50 cents on the dollar. So basically, based on the 5.9 million and their matching formulas, we can raise approximately $10 million. And that money is basically part of those government programs that already exist and we've already qualified for as part of our FBIR participation.
So I'll just go a little bit farther on that with what Dr. Salvo was saying. So there's a lot of different matching programs, but the specific one called STRATFIRE, Strategic Funding Initiative of the United States Air Force, actually it's a dollar for dollar match when you factor in the stakeholder money which goes into it. So basically 6 million total of investor dollars will lead to $6 million of non-dilutive government dollars. Half that's going to come from AFWorks, which is a program through the SBIR program, and then the other half is supposed to come from, probably in your case, Dr. Salvo, from the Air Force Research Labs. So it's a great program. They have a lower dollar initiative, which is at $1.7 million, which will be matched as well. This is all based on the details of their last program because they haven't released their 2022 program, which is expected to be released in the coming days. So if you're an investor, it's a really interesting way to balance out your investment with some non-dilutive and non-competitive investor money coming from the government.
Yeah, sounds good. I heard about it, but I didn't know details. Thanks so much, Josh, and a good presentation. Thanks, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe last question. And for this 12 million, how far does it take you? Does it take you all the way to the products, or how many years of runway would you provide? Can you provide a deliverable milestone and things like that?
Well, this funding will take us to what we hope is a processor that we can demonstrate and we can show, connecting it to the cloud, and people can log in and they can see and they can compare the results they get on our quantum processor vis-a-vis, for example, IBM, who's also made available via the cloud their processor. So this money should take us to basically to the point where we have a prototype that we can demonstrate of a functioning quantum processor.
What about the software side? Do you have to develop your own software in order to function?
No, because we are designing it from the get-go to be compatible with IBM's language and Microsoft's languages. And so the software will be what's already available on the market. We're trying to be a software and operating system agnostic. and basically just provide a quantum computing platform that can operate at room temperature and is portable, which nobody's doing. I mean, there are other people working on room temperature, but not both portable and room temperature.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So that was coherent, and presenting was Dr. Roberto DiSalvo. And next up is Ready Wireless. Presenting will be Fred Haumeser, who's the co-founder and CRO.
Thanks, Josh. Are we ready to go then?
Go for it.
Go for it. Great. I'm on the clock. Good afternoon. My name is Fred Haumeser, co-founder, Chief Revenue Officer for Ready Wireless. We are an IoT end-to-end managed services provider. We like to say that we solve business problems simply. We were founded in 2005. We're privately held LLC located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the United States. If you want to hit the next slide, please. As we pivoted over the last 5 years from telecommunications centric effort toward IoT, we positioned ourselves to serve 3 pillars in that ecosystem. The first being the maker or OEM. Typically, they're good at building things that solve a problem, but without distribution and well-shaped go-to-market strategy, their effort can fall flat, especially after a lengthy pre-revenue development phase. Secondly, we serve the channel. We've partnered with a number of large sales organizations in the US. They have over 12,000 agents under management that we have access to. Ready helps build out an IoT strategy that allows those agents to expand the conversation with their existing customer base and new prospects. Those folks can now win opportunities where before they didn't have access to the capability at all. For the customer, we bring a solutions-based approach focused on changing the way they do business. IoT can be very complicated and it can be hard to employ. We simplify that process and bring a scalable platform that expands its reach across any solution or problem that's being addressed. Next slide, please. So, in terms of customer challenges, a prospect or customer often has many problems inside their organization that needs to be addressed. Identifying and implementing the solution requires a lengthy evaluation, negotiation, and adoption process. And at the end of the day, you end up with several solutions, several contacts or vendors, several agreements to manage, and it makes a difficult process harder and less likely to be embraced enterprise-wide. Next slide. So at Ready, we solve problems by consolidating the ecosystems. Makers, channel partners, customers, all looking at a single pane of glass. Once a problem is addressed and operations are running more efficiently in that particular area, we can expand or move on to the next problem with new technology, quickly implement and seamlessly done. The platform and network is already there, so it's just a matter of adding new asset trackers or sensors to the platform itself. Next slide. So while Ready already has over 150 products available, our platform is always expanding. And that said, we often find what we call hero products that are easy to distribute through the channel and are easy conversations to have with customers or prospects. These hero solutions, they often address items that are top of mind in an industry-wide, or they're top of mind or as an industry-wide pain point. They might also follow legislation requirements imposed on a particular industry. Hospitality, hotels, resorts in the US is an example of that. It's required now in several states, and legislation is pending in many more, where a hotel, as an example, has to provide lone workers or panic buttons to housekeeping and janitorial staff while they work on site. We have technology to easily and cost effectively build out a mesh network custom to the property layout. We satisfy the legislative requirements and ensure workers are safe by having the ability to notify everyone on site should they need help. And the interesting thing with that is once we employ that network, then several other solutions can be hung on top of that, whether it's pest control, air quality management, cold chain monitoring, looking at just different systems that are on property. Next slide. So this slide is fairly self-explanatory. Why ready? We engineer solutions from the problem up. We leverage thousands of devices that use the most effective method of connectivity based on whatever the use case is, and we visualize that data on a single pane of glass for the customer. Return on investment is the beginning and the end of this discussion for the target. It's not about finding a problem to that only our solution is built to address. So some examples of that.
Warning.
Yeah. So examples of that on the next slide, please. These are examples of Ready working on an organization with an organization to try and solve an operational problem that isn't an out-of-the-box solution built in the marketplace. These represent more of the engineering to solve model than the hero solutions approach I talked about earlier. Some of these were won, some are still in proof of concept, but we've learned a lot about the process and the value it creates. We know and our customers know that IoT is not easy. So the next slide shows what is our ask. If you're a stakeholder in a corporation, we'd welcome the opportunity to have a discussion about utilizing IoT to help solve any operational problems that may qualify. If you are affiliated with a government agency, we're kind of new to that space and learning. So bending your ear on how to get more involved in federal, state, or local government opportunities would be very helpful for us. I'd love to have that conversation. And while we're not currently seeking funding, if you're with an investment firm, we're open to the conversation. We're privately held, are in a great position for growth in an exciting and dynamic growing space. So last slide. That's our team. We appreciate it, and I'm open to take questions. I think I got in 5 minutes.
Awesome.
And my dog approves.
There you go. Open it up the floor. Any questions? Go ahead, Yoav.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. I didn't understand what is your unique technology offering. You're using other people's products or developing your own. If you can expand on that.
Yeah, so we bring sensors, network, and the platform itself to market. We bring it all together to solve a particular use case. Our platform is the dynamic piece of it and our intellectual property. We partner with hundreds of OEMs to bring in a device based on whatever the use case or problem is. And we are network agnostic. So it's not as though we are a telco operator, an MNO, and restricted only to our particular network. We work with dozens of MNOs here in the US. We have LoRa-based partners. We use Wi-Fi, Bluetooth technology. It really just depends what the particular use case is and where the devices are required to connect and transport data from.
Go ahead, Harry.
Thank you. How does this compare to other offerings in this space? A couple come to my mind in the smart cities space, like the Things Network, My Devices, that sound fairly similar. What is your competitive landscape?
We have built a very wide network of channel partner sales organizations. So it sounds like you might be located in the US. I see your sign behind you. We work with T-Mobile, US Cellular. We work with Teleris. They're a large sales organization in the US. So not only do we bring the solutions into the marketplace, but for the OEMs that are building those devices, we have a built-in sales organization. So about 12,000 agents that are out there representing solutions and can bring us into the mix to help address a prospect need.
Great. Han, last question for the open topic session.
Sure. Sure. Thank you. Actually, you have I believe that you have a very unique and great IoT consolidation solution there. And I think your competitive edge is that, large channel partners like you mentioned. And I am happen to be in corporate and capital side of it. So I'd like to talk to you when you get a chance later. Okay. Thank you.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you, everybody, for companies that we spoke to today. Just quick recap. We heard from a number of different companies today. We heard from Ready Wireless, Zeta Labs, Coherent, MagWorks Vision, and Imagino Inc. So we're going to move on to our next session. I think we have the entire panel and most of the panel staying with us. If you do have to go, then thank you for joining us. But let's introduce the panel for session 2. While you want to cue it up. Joining us is, staying with us is Bob Christopher from Diamond Edge Ventures, from Zucker Group Hanko, from Starburst Aerospace, Nathaniel Asher Kraut, from Walmart Global Tech, Anna German, from AeroVironment, Derek Gores, from Next Gear Ventures, Yoav Weiser, from Allstate Strategic Ventures, Reese Schroeder, from the City of Mesa, Harry Meyer, from the 52nd Communication Squadron of the United States Air Force, Joe McRae, and from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, Edward Lavender. So let's just get a chance, and before we jump right into it, I get a chance for the panelists that are new to this session to introduce themselves. So if you're new to this session, feel free to open your mic and introduce yourself. I saw Derek's here, so Derek, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Derek Gortz. I'm a director of business development at AeroVironment, focused on AI and ML programs, former 5th Special Forces Group.
Awesome. Asher.
Yeah, good to meet everybody. Asher Kraut from Starburst. We are a seed and Series A stage venture fund focused on aerospace and defense technology, so leading most of the deal flow here.
Awesome. Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna German with Walmart Technology. We do emerging tech, covering all our lines of business, but mostly focused on internal development and our core business areas. So things like AI and things operational, all things operational.
Awesome. Okay, and let's do a quick intro of all the panelists that are continuing with us. Harry, you want to go first?
Sure. Harry Meyer, Deputy CIO for Innovation and Smart Cities with Mesa, Arizona.
Thank you. Bob?
Sure, Bob Christopher. I'm with Diamond Edge Ventures. We're the venture capital arm of Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings. So we invest in a number of areas. Our check size is $1 million to $3 million. We made 7 investments. We're a new firm, so actually we're 3 years old in our venture activity. Although we're a 100-year-old company, we're new in our venture side. I came out of Panasonic, so I've spent a lot of time in venture and innovation there. So nice to meet everybody on the panel.
Awesome. Yoav.
Yes, hi everyone. Yoav Weiser, Next Gear Ventures, with an Israeli venture fund focused on investing in early stage smart mobility startups.
Awesome. Hanko.
Hanko, Hisako Group. We're an international venture capital group based out of USA and have presence in South Korea as well. Our check size is anywhere from actually all the way up to 7-8 mil, and we have appetite for pretty much variety of industry. So nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Awesome. Reese.
Hello, everybody. Reese Schroeder. I'm with Allstate Strategic Ventures. We are the corporate venture capital arm of Allstate Insurance Company. We are a strategic investor, so we look for companies that have solutions that complement what we do internally. We are a Series A through C investor. Check sizes 1 to 10 million.
Awesome. Ed?
Ed Laverdure, Deputy Director of Education for Region 4 of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. And I'm also Principal Innovator for Inventav Solutions in Edmond, Oklahoma, and looking to help out any of the companies that are interested in pursuing research opportunities, not only with the Air Force, but across the Department of Defense.
Awesome. Cool. So this is our panel. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to get started with the first company. So who do we have pitching first, Yuval? I believe we have
Greenwich.
Great.
And I think Carrie's already on. I think I saw him.
Yeah, Carrie's here. Carrie's got the most beautiful pastoral background, making all of us jealous of his digital background.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Go ahead, Carrie.
Yep.
You can hear me fine. Okay. Thank you everyone for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm Carrie Sparrow. I'm the founder and CEO of Greenwich.hr, which is the go-to-market name for Market Advantage Incorporated. And we have built the world's largest and still fastest growing source of real-time labor market intelligence. So what does that actually mean to this group? For today's discussion, we're going to specifically talk about what's going on in the world of pay. Every organization needs to know what to pay their people. They need to know what to pay their people in order to recruit them and what to pay their people in order to keep them. Every individual should know what their skills are worth. Any organization in the business of building skills needs to know where to focus efforts in order to maximize the value that they're bringing to their the folks that they're educating. It's a pervasive question. And right now the world, can you go to the next slide, please? The world, because of a variety of economic factors, is basically flying blind. What you're looking at right now is a chart that shows the rate of wage inflation across all the communities, all the metro areas in the United States for the 4-week period that ended last Friday, compared to the 4-week period that ended 4 weeks before then. So this is how much new jobs are getting paid more than what they were a month ago. And on average, that's 4.5%. Keep in mind that over my entire professional lifetime, the annual wage inflation in the United States has hovered around 3% a year. It's gone up sometimes and down sometimes, but around 3%. We're seeing right now double-digit wage inflation. And what's shocking about that is not just the number, but also the fact that nobody can see this. Traditional sources of information about pay and about hiring are based on methods that typically involve surveys that are collected and representative of decisions that are 1 to 2 years old. Those methods were never designed to deal with the dynamism that we're seeing in the economy right now. Can you go to the next slide, please? Where we've got double-digit wage inflation combined with actual inflation, meaningful inflation, combined with pervasive remote work still, which is significantly changing the boundaries around which pay decisions should be made, as well as a material portion of the workforce that's still sitting on the sidelines or underrepresented because of pervasive COVID concerns and other factors. No source of information about what jobs are getting paid can deal with that degree of change. No source was ever set up to be able to do that except one. In 2016, we launched a different approach to understanding what's happening with hiring and pay. And that platform was launched as a business, as a data as a service business. Can you go to the next slide, please? We take a fundamentally different approach to understanding what's going on with jobs around the world. We look at how jobs are being advertised, and we extract an enormous amount of intelligence, well beyond what most people would think is possible from that. To put the scale around this, we're able to track the hiring and pay behaviors of companies that represent 80% of all the hiring that's going on in the United States. That's just the United States. We're in up to 45 countries with our data platform. And we provide access to our data platform as a service to other companies across a wide range of industries, other types of organizations. So we have, as clients, we have hedge funds, quantitative traders, investment managers, media companies, large corporations. One of you is going to see your company's name on our logo list here next, as well as large general management and HR consulting firms, recruiting organizations, startups, technology companies. We're deliberately set up as a data as a service company because we can serve a wide range of use cases by doing so. What that means, though, is that we don't provide applications. However, we're at a point in time where we're going to change that. We're in the process of, and we're committed to bringing applications to market to support our first high opportunity vertical. One of the things that we do extraordinarily well, better than anyone in the world, is we figure out what companies are going to pay for the jobs that they're hiring, not what they have paid for people already in their organization, but what they're paying for jobs that are about to be hired, will be hired in the next couple of months. So we have the only
30-second warning.
Thanks. We're able to capture about 75% of that pay. So this represents, next page, an opportunity for us to reach an audience of compensation professionals. That audience represents conservatively a $75 million audience. Next page. How do we know this is any good? We've already done the hard part of building the platform, and it's been validated across many of the world's best brands. Aon is the world's leading HR and pay benchmarking provider. Walmart uses our data extensively for competitive intelligence. Stanford, MIT, Cambridge use our data for advanced research. So we know it's already been validated, not just by our clients, but by their clients. Now we have the opportunity to push into front ends, to push into applications that serve as a starting point, the compensation analyst community. But that's not the only community we'll serve. But we know that community extremely well. So that represents an immediate opportunity for us. What are we asking for? We're looking for, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, there you go. We're looking for partners that can help us build out the front end technology that brings pay-related business intelligence to a very broad audience. That's an immediate pain point around the world. Any organization above a certain size has somebody that has a portion of their job that's dedicated to figuring out what pay should be and how to administer pay decisions across the organization. And those people are not only flying blind right now, but they are under significant pain because their management recognizes that they don't know what to pay people in this environment where recruiting talent is so hard. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for folks that can help us take advantage of this very immediate and broad opportunity. And if you're interested in that, we'd like to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Opening up the floor, questions for Kerry. Chance to respond.
Actually, I have one. I'm sorry. Actually, you have a good approach and solution there to the market. I know the exact pain point that you have there. I mean, that everybody has there. How far are you into in terms of development? Are you just trying to the conceptual stage right now, or I wasn't really clear on that one.
Yeah, so the data platform itself, so the source of the data was launched in 2016. And so it's extensively developed. We started in the US. Like I said, we cover about 80% of all the new jobs there. We get pay on about 75% of those. So that the underlying platform is fully developed and fully scalable. We are finishing up the prototyping phases of looking at application capabilities. So the ability to bring a BI tool basically to compensation analysts and compensation consultants. We already have that as a proof of concept. We know the use cases. We've tested it with different audiences. We have several partners that are looking at white labeling that capability where they bring the tech to the table. So we have several deals that are either signed or in progress. But we feel that the opportunity is broad enough that we want to get in the space ourselves and bring our own application to market. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And how much you try to raise, or?
Between 3 and 6 million.
Okay, thanks.
Harry, go ahead.
Thank you. Has your AI been trained on the public sector as well as private sector, or are you focused specifically on the jobs that are out there in the private?
So our platform serves private sector and public sector jobs as well. So if jobs are being posted for public consumption, which is true for most government jobs these days, then we capture it at the same rate as we capture all the jobs, and our AI works on it equally well.
Go ahead, Anna. Last question of the session.
You mentioned some of the existing partnerships. So what kind of deals do you, or what kind of, what do you have in place in terms of agreements about how you're allowed to use their data and, for example, Walmart, and what your parameters are about leveraging that data for future usage, whether that is in the form of an algorithm or otherwise? Are you restricted, for example?
The short answer is no. What you pay for it, though, will vary depending on what your use case is. And so as a platform, if you are, what we have sold so far is access to our data platform, which means you have to be a pretty savvy analytics shop, or you got to bring it into a technology. And if the use of the platform is for internal use only, for example, monitoring what your competitors' pay practices are to ensure that you're competitive at a local level for specific jobs, which is what Walmart uses our data for, then we have one price point. If you want to build the data into products or services that you then sell, then we have a different price point. That's either a license agreement or it's a revenue share approach. So there's different approaches there that depend on your use case and the amount of data that you want to use. Did I answer your question, or were you asking from a different perspective?
I guess slightly different perspective, but I think we might be out of time, so it's all right. We can follow up.
Yeah, feel free. I'd love to connect with you.
All right, thank you, Carrie from Greenwich AR. Next up is Hadron Industries, and pitching is Joshua Van Buskirk. Josh, I think I saw you online, so whenever you're ready, open your mic and get started.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Van Buskirk. I'm the Director of Operations with Hadron Industries. And today what I'm going to do is with our short time together, I'm going to cover 4 things. First, I'm going to talk about our ask. Then I'll quickly cover our origin story with this video I'm about to play. And then I'm going to do a hands-on demonstration with Brian. At that point, I'll turn it over to you folks for any questions or comments you might have. So the first thing I mentioned, that ask, the technology you're going to see today is a SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Award technology built in conjunction with the Air Force. We're going big with both U.S. Air Force and U.S. Spacecom, but we need scaling, and we also need assistance breaking into the commercial sector and the other components of the DoD. So that's our ask. Please keep that in mind as I go through this presentation. So Hadron Industries is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that focuses on bringing Apple and MIT innovation to the DoD. Our founder was a medevac pilot after leaving Apple and working for Steve Jobs, and he said to himself, hey, warfighters have multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment, but they don't have great user interfaces like the user interfaces that teenagers have with the iPhone. So after being deployed to Iraq, he created Hadron, and the idea was to create a great user experience for the warfighter. So what we did is we linked up with Colonel Jim Matty in the Pentagon, and he said, gentlemen, I want you to make Minority Report. So as you can see here, we've got a video here with our early work back in 2014. We've got an Air Force First Lieutenant at Air Force Research Labs, and he's using that Minority Report system. It's smooth, it's easy, it's intuitive. It's just like Tom Cruise in the Minority Report movies. He's moving that UAV, gesturally as we would evolve to operate in the world, not with mouse and keyboard, but with physical gesture. So Once we did that, Colonel Maddie's next task for us was to basically take everything that's on our computer, whether it be an image, a PDF, an application, and to give us the capability to move it anywhere inside an operations center. So what we did is we built basically a map, and that map is what we call the photon console on the left here, all these blue boxes. And you'll notice that as I move the Air Force symbol back and forth, it moves on screens in the real world that you can see on the right-hand side here. Now, Colonel Maddie didn't just want one person to be able to interface with the system. He wanted anyone with critical information to be able to get it in front of the commander in real time. So I'm going to ask Brian. Brian, do you see the deep text showcase symbol that I've just highlighted?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to take my hands off the keyboard and mouse and invite you, and only you, Brian, since you have a link. I'm going to ask you to move the D onto the blue screen, or onto the blue box, rather.
Sure.
Perfect. And as you can see, just like I was able to manipulate that one image, now Brian's able to do the same. So the next thing Colonel Maddie wanted is he didn't just want one ops center to be able to move images, PDFs, and applications. He wanted us to be able to move it between ops centers and via low bandwidth connection to aerial platforms like the AWACS, which he's got an AWACS background. So you'll notice I just moved the Air Force symbol. Now I just moved it 10 miles down the road from Concord, New Hampshire to the New Hampshire CyberSOC in Pembroke. Brian can now do the same. He can follow me with the deep showcase symbol and move it 10 miles down the road. And now that you can see that that shows up, we've just connected two ops centers or two locations together. We're sharing, we're collaborating. Now I'm going to take back control from Brian, and we're going to move it to Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. Colonel Maddie is now a group commander out at Tinker Air Force Base, so we just moved it across the country. I did this, and now Brian's going to do the same. And while he's doing that, notice that we're using New Hampshire and Oklahoma right now, but we could do this anywhere in the world we wanted, as long as you've got our technology and our capability. So we've just moved images, and you might ask yourself, well, hey, Josh, what else can this do? So I'm going to take back control from Brian, and I'm going to throw in this dark gray box. This dark gray box is a virtual machine and could represent any application that you might want to work on. And I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to create 3 entries. I'll have one in Concord, one in the CyberSOC, and then I'm also going to put one at Tinker Air Force Base in Colonel Maddie's conference room. Now notice, shows up at all 3 locations. I can also just simply right-click on this, and now I can start interfacing with this particular application. What we brought in here was the PAD software, the primary AWACS display. So it's the system that Air Force folks use to operate their particular system. I can interface with this, Brian can interface with this, I can have anyone else interface with it. So just to show you, right, rather than using the PAD software, I'm going to give you a very simple example with Notepad. So I've gone in here, and now I'm just like I was able to use those images, I'm able to write my name in here. Once I'm done, I can then invite Brian to type his name in underneath mine. And then now that Brian is done, I can have my colleague, Hunter, take control, and he can type his name underneath here. And with something just as simple as a hyperlink, now we can have many-to-many collaboration. And with this technology, we've been able to prove through an Air Force military utility assessment, the ability to cut down the kill chain, or the time that it takes for us to do things, by 20%. So we're taking off with the Air Force, we're taking off with US Spacecom, and we'd love to go back to my ask, your mentorship or guidance on how we can get this to the other services in the DoD and how we can break through in the commercial sector. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you for that, Josh. This is Derek with AeroVironment. What phase SBIR did you get?
So we've actually done, we've done phase 1, phase 2. We've done several phase 3s. So this is a TRL-9 technology that's got about a dozen SBIR contracts under its belt.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Anna.
Question for you. So the gesture part, I understand. What I'm trying to understand is the collaboration part, the desktop collaboration tools that you've created to support this. So I was part of a group called Contigo Telepost years ago that did a JavaScript platform that did something very similar, but did not use gestures. But we connected lots of disparate systems together through a real-time collaboration system, and spent a lot of time with big corporate clients, onboarding them into the tech. So, kind of from my background, just really interested, maybe it's beyond this conversation right now, but to know more about the collaboration space you've been able to create.
So I think that's absolutely a deeper conversation, but the 30-second answer is we don't view ourselves as an application or one particular instance. We view ourselves as a platform that makes all your existing tools faster and easier to use. Just like I mentioned the military utility assessment we did with the Air Force. So happy to have a more in-depth conversation, but we're not trying to replace everything. We're bringing everything into our system to make it easier for many-to-many collaboration, like you saw with the image and like you saw with the notepad and the AWACS display.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Josh, Hanko here. Good presentation. Really like the idea here. Are you at liberty to share or export your product services to foreign corporate, not government, but non-military? For example, I could see that used for remote manufacturing facility or even training. So I was wondering about that. I know you're heavily invested by U.S. government, so I just was curious about that.
Yeah, we built this for the warfighter, but we're obviously very excited about commercialization. There's no limitations on who we can sell this to. And then I talked a lot about the military. That's our focus, but Glitzy law firms also like this as a many-to-many collaboration tool as well.
Okay, thank you.
Especially when it becomes touch, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Josh is from Hadron Industries. And up next is Sharp Focus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pitching will be Curtis, who's co-founder and chief strategy and innovation officer.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be speaking with you. So let me start with why we're here and hopefully why you care. If we go to the next slide, we are focused on preventing accidents and incidents. So in the maritime industry, there were over 26,000 incidents over the past decade. In aviation, there were 6,000 non-combat related mishaps and just over a 5-year period. If we go to the next slide, focusing a little bit more on the aviation, those 6,000 mishaps that were non-combat related cost 224 lives, $11.6 billion, and 186 aircraft. This is a quote from this report that was produced. I think it's only just over a year old. And it is noted that it is a lack of data collection, quality data collection analyses that is a key driver for these incidents. And ultimately, what we identify is that it's the rapidly increasing complexity and the fact that our systems are more tightly coupled. It's the socio-digital and mechanical environments that we're operating in, both on the military side, but also in our civilian and commercial lives, that is causing the rise in emergent threat vectors, and ultimately our capacity or endogenous knowledge in order to respond to these types of threats is too limited. So if we go to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about how we are focused on solving this problem and perhaps how we can work together with your help. And if you want to join us in our journey, we can try to prevent these accidents. So basically, we're combining scientifically proven leading edge management methodologies with experimental technological tools to deliver a step change advancement in the way that we respond to risks. We're developing a platform that starts with smart data acquisition. So we're guiding users to provide the correct and proper information to the system. Then we're employing artificial intelligence, a lot of natural language processing techniques in order to be able to extract relevant data from these reports. We use that to prioritize and provide recommendations. And then finally, we monitor the effectiveness of those in an ongoing basis. On the next slide, we'll look a little bit at how this can actually solve the problem. How does a solution solve the problem? And what we have is a primary conflict in the fact that we see in hindsight that almost always there is a trail of breadcrumbs that could have been followed to prevent an accident. The data was there, but it wasn't processed in time to be able to prevent the actual accident. And a lot of times the data, the key relevant information wasn't recognized. So the conflict is that you have these operators that are aware of the information, but they're also trying to do their, perform their daily duties, and they have limited capacity to collect that information. And so what we need to do is reduce that constraint. And what we provide is a tool that helps guide users to provide the relevant information, because ultimately this information is there and there are experts that know what to collect, but those experts are very limited. In many cases, they're also very expensive and they're not scalable. So we're trying to scale that expertise, put it in the palm of people's hands so they collect the data correctly the first time, and the data is collected in such a way that we facilitate downstream analyses. So if we go to the next slide. So this is a little bit about, basically the core technologies we are leveraging. We are, we're combining a lot of natural language processing and other AI. We also are leveraging high reliability organizing techniques and developing the system to help organizations become better learning organizations. We have a deep expertise in process improvement, and we're applying all of that knowledge with this technical data and this approach in order to facilitate faster acceleration of learning within organizations. Next slide.
30-second warning.
Thank you. So this is who we're working with currently. These are some of our past clients, as well as clients we're currently working with on this on projects to develop the system. What else do I want to say here? I think that's good. If we go to the next slide. So yeah, what we're looking for is either more partnership opportunities, paid pilots, which we currently have, or also investment in order to be able to scale our platform and meet more clients. Finally, I think the last slide. So this is who we are currently. We have deep expertise in safety, machine learning, AI, as well as management sciences. And yeah, this is where you find us. I think that's my time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Curtis. Anna, go ahead.
So I guess two for a question. One, you mentioned a couple of industries. Do you do trucking possibly as one of your, you mentioned aviation and maritime?
Yeah, aviation and maritime have been areas we've been focused on because I think the costs of incidents are pretty heavy when there is something that goes wrong. But trucking is absolutely an area we'd be interested in a pilot. It would definitely be applicable. We've also explored healthcare as well as construction and even manufacturing. So the applications are pretty wide, and trucking is one that we haven't done a deep dive on, but it would be very interesting for us to explore.
Okay, I hear it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So yeah,
it's a big industry, and we're definitely we've been intentional because we do have wide applications. We've been intentional about where we apply our time, and maritime was identified as attractive for a number of reasons. But trucking is also something that would be in line.
Good.
Yes. Hi. Can you expand a little bit on the data sources that you're using to run your algorithms? Is it a structured data? You need to collect it manually? How does it work? I mean, without the right data, the algorithms can't give you real feedback.
Great question. One of the areas that I would say is part of our competitive advantage, sort of our secret sauce, is in being able to determine what sufficient data is. So currently in some of our pilots, we have accumulated up to like 90 and maybe going on to 100 different types of data sources. And so one of the things that we do is we stitch that data together and we look at what is the critical information in order to understand when things went wrong. So rich sources of data for us are text data, text reports, and guiding users through text reports to ensure that they capture the relevant information. So yeah, like a near miss report, an incident report are very key sources of data. But what we find in most cases, in most industries, those reports are woefully lacking in the critical details. So we provide tools to help collect that information, and then we combine it with a lot of other information as well. And so we're even, we have, worked with companies that are doing like computer vision. There's all, systems monitors and IoT, like different types of sensory data. There's lots of different ways that we can combine. Once we understand what data is required in order to, identify when operations are safe and when they start veering towards dangerous, we can instrument all kinds of techniques to collect that data in more efficient ways as well. Sorry if that didn't fully answer the question, but I think it starts wide and then we narrow it down depending on the use case.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for Curtis? Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next. Thank you so much, Curtis. That's Curtis from Sharp Focus. Next up is Stream It, and pitching will be Lance King, who is the CEO. Hey, Lance.
Hi, thank you. Great. So as you said, I'm Lance King, CEO here at Stream It. We combine AI and real-time analytics for disruptive innovation, and I'll explain that on the next slide. So what we realized with AI is that AI is actually the easier part. As difficult as it is, that's the easy part. It's even harder to get the data out, consolidate it in a timely manner, and make sense of that data and get real insights from it. And so we created a unique technology stack so that we can perform AI at the edge in the stream as it traverses the network, or in the cloud, the data center, which is where it's typically done. We want to do it wherever it's most efficient so that you're never painted into a corner and can't do what you need. It's mobile capable, and it's fully operationalized AI with over-the-air updates. And so when we say fully operationalized, you find that carrying and feeding the AI system is an awful lot of work if it's not fully operationalized. So then we have real-time streaming and integrated data analytics built into the architecture. And then it's an open architecture. And in the future, we'll have an AI app store. So you can choose AI from whomever you want, including our own, and put it into the system. And then our real-time data pipeline can integrate with more than 70 different APIs. So regardless of how you want to consume that data, you have access to it, because our view is it's your data, not ours. Next slide. So one of our first customers was a transit agency in Los Angeles County. And they wanted to have 10 HD cameras per bus streaming video, which is a big challenge in and of itself over an LTE connection in an urban environment. But then they wanted real-time analytics on top of that. And so we were able to provide not just location information, but passenger counts based on artificial intelligence. We could do weapons detection, all kinds of things that you can't do with more traditional sensors and without AI. And then we try and take that and make it really presentable, help them find the gems inside that data. When you start to aggregate that data over time and view it in a 3D space, you start to see patterns that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. Next slide. And so with this platform for disruptive innovation and situational awareness, it's like any other platform. There's no demand for it until you create it. And in this case, we actually had a customer who needed something like that. And so we created it for them. We realized that that technology stack has a lot of other uses. Smart city and smart highway is a great one. We had several customers in that field, generated some revenue of over 2.8 million there. and that's expanding all the time. We've got a current implementation for Department of Transportation where our system is counting the cars per lane, classifying the type of car, truck, van, whatever else, and even counting the people inside the cars in the HOV lane to make sure they're in compliance. And then aggregating all that data in real time from all the different locations and rolling it up so that they can see patterns and learn more about their traffic. And so where Cisco has had 3 efforts and eventually failed and exited the smart city market because they started at the bottom and tried to work their way up, we started at the top with the most difficult thing you could do, streaming lots of HD video from a moving object in a dense urban environment with real-time analytics based on AI. So once you got that down, you can add in the rest of a smart city, and it's quite easy. We also have a customer in the quick serve restaurant. We're currently doing a $25,000 POC with a $15 million expansion coming if this is successful. We had talked to them a year ago, and they had said, hey, we're already doing AI. We can tell if they put the right number of pickles on the burger. And we said, that's great. What you're going to find is you can't get the data out, aggregate it, make sense of it, and present it in real time. And sure enough, a year later, they came back and said, that's exactly what our biggest challenge ended up being. The AI ended up being relatively easy. And so now they're working with us. So another application of our technology we looked at that uses that technology stack is a new approach to home automation, one that actually makes it worthwhile. And that led us to another product that we released last year called Cyberlander, the disappearing camper for the Tesla Cybertruck. And it has got
30-second warning.
Thank you. We got 110 million in orders. Please go to the next slide and click the video once you get there. So there's our little disappearing camper for the Tesla Cybertruck. It fits entirely within the vault, so there's no aerodynamic drag, so it doesn't hurt the range. And yet inside, you got a complete tiny home. Next slide. So we've got 110 million in orders already. We think we can do 400 million in revenue the first full year of production. Next slide, please. And so we're seeking funding of $10 to $100 million to help with that growth and to continue to advance our technology platform for multiple verticals. Any questions? I've left you all speechless. Hi, Harry.
Sure. So in the smart city space, you mentioned that that challenge that you tackled with the real-time video streaming. How did you tackle that? And also a follow-on question when you've answered that one.
Okay. Just quickly, this agency, this transit agency, had brought in Dell, Compaq, everybody in the surveillance business. Nobody could do it. And I went in and we solved it literally in less than 2 weeks because we took a completely different approach. I had spent a lot of years in the Bay Area working for startups and the mobile tech. So we used that kind of an approach rather than a more traditional enterprise approach. And without getting deep in the weeds, that's the short answer.
And when you talk about your technology doing the AI on the wire, is that in the form of like apps running on network switches, or and
Correct.
if so, are there any particular platforms that you're targeting?
That is how we do it. It's being an application on a network switch. It happens in real time as it traverses it, and we try to be platform agnostic. We don't want to tie ourselves or our customers or anybody down to one way of doing things, which is why we keep it an open architecture as well. Not open source, but open. That answer your question?
Got a good question here. Lance, good presentation. Thank you. I know you're asking 10 mil and up. Could you share what the plan is for that one?
You bet. So we'd like to build the factory to build the Cyberlander. So we need land, building, or we can rent those. But we need to buy the equipment and and begin the manufacturing, and then have some operating capital.
Right. Thanks.
And that, of course, drives sales, which provides R&D funding, which lets us continue to develop the platform, right? So,
okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any last question? No, we'll move on. Awesome. So that was Lance King, CEO of StreamIt. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Up next is Blue Space AI. Christine Moon is the co-founder and president, will be presenting. And this is the last presentation for the training session, and we're going to be moving on to the simulations session. So welcome.
Hi, everyone. All right, I didn't want to be in the middle because some of you might be stepping away and falling asleep. So I wanted to be the last or the first. I see some familiar names. I see some friendly faces. And I wanted to share with you about Blue Space, especially for today's topic, which is training. So let me go back. Sorry. Let's see. Okay. Blue Space. We're based in Northern California, Perception for All Autonomy. I'm one of the co-founders here. We're based in East Bay, right next to Berkeley. And we are, the company's young. We started in 2019, raised 7.5 million, but the team members have been in autonomy for a while. And as per, famous and at times controversial investor, Peter Thiel says, do a startup when you have a secret. Our secret was, hey, autonomy is indeed happening. There's a gold rush of autonomy, but there's something that still needs to be addressed. And that is this. Autonomy takes different forms and sizes and different ODDs. Huge market, but challenges. One, high development cost, very, very expensive, leaky bucket. And it's actually very relevant to today's topic, which is training. And then second, all software is so custom. Argo is different from Cruise. Waymo is different from Aurora. Dual use case is also very different. And the reliability and certification is still a challenge. So Blue Space, learning from our past experience and drawing from that, and with additional insights, addresses all of these, especially as it relates to training. So we've come up with generalizable software that can provide quality and cheaper training data for all scenarios, all ODDs, all use cases on and off, dual use case, military and civilian, and 4 different form factors. And I'll tell you how we do that. And I want to highlight, as we engage with customers, they talk about the limited budget and the red tape and other stuff. And this is McKinsey putting out that for, as we get to advanced levels of autonomy, bulk of the costs, as you see in black, will come from validation costs. When they say validation, as you know very well, it means data collection, testing, simulation, rinse and repeat. There are decacorns like Scale.ai that just provides annotation, right? Because everyone needs training. Well, we provide 2 things. We provide quality data, training data that's needed for ADAS and AD. And then we also help you get to be free from training. So I'll tell you about two things. And I gotta say this works because we first developed this first. And as a byproduct of that, we're able to generate quality data at a fraction of the cost. I don't know if you guys know, annotation is very labor intensive and it's very, very time consuming. As a reference point, 20,000 frames, which is about half hour of data collected, takes about $15,000 US. Turnaround time, let's say weeks, not a matter of days. And there are startups popping up left and right saying, I get these emails all the time. Hey, we'll provide annotation for you. And there's a setup cost, there's a per agent fee. And you have to send it to a different remote, outside of your country. And which triggers the privacy concerns as well. When we engage with the military, they actually say, Blue Space, we like you guys because you don't have to collect. But as a byproduct of that, we give you training data. So let me talk about that. What do we do? Our Blue Spaces software called Blue Sense, we measure true motion state of all objects. We're a math and physics-based approach. And this works here in California. It works overseas. It works in Asia, Latin America, and Europe. And this is a patent that's been granted to us. And this can be an add-on. And as a result of that, what we would offer as a subscription service is being able to get annotated data without having to pay that $30,000 for 1 hour worth of data. We will be 1% of that cost. And this can be done for civilian purposes or military purposes. But at the end of the day, you want to know, well, how good are you? Can you show me some metrics? And this is where we have done RTK ground truthing, which gives you 2 centimeter per second accuracy. And we've seen that relative to the industry out there, whether it's Motional or Argo AI, the known players out there, our level of accuracy, not just like, have you seen it, have you not seen it? We are able to get to yaw rate accuracy, acceleration accuracy, very much needed to get to the true motion state. I'm going to talk a little fast, I'm going to give the warning now. And this can be done with faster reaction time latency and improved reliability. And what you get as a customer is pre-calibrated hardware and software that you put on. And you don't need to give us your data because that might have some concerns about privacy. We only need to get our own data from this pre-calibrated hardware. So it makes it easy for you because it's an independent system. So it works for all scenarios. Some of the familiar audience may have seen this. This is us driving around in a place we've never taken our software to in our test vehicle. And we're working with some of these cutting edge sensors like the imaging radar and FMCW LiDAR. It works in all environmental conditions, white storm, sandstorm, blackouts. And this is important because camera is good, but you need an independent system to be a backup. And this can give you 2 things, as I said, quality training data that works with your existing, and then also at the end of the day, being free from data so that you can go to foreign soil or uncharted territories, unmapped areas, so that you could land well in sea, in air, and on land. This is actually on-road. We have several more that's off-road as well. I think we've applied for DoD grants for naval harbor docking as well. So we would love to talk after to talk about the scenarios that you care about, right? So I'll pause there and let's see. I think that was one of the last things that I wanted to share with you. And I would like to invite you to experience it for yourself. It's certifiable, which is important for many folks who want to commercialize. No data privacy concerns, and you can train and scale with BlueSense. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Okay, so let's open it straight up to questions. Bob.
Yes, hi, nice to meet you, Christine. Great presentation. I like the, so you're in Berkeley.
Yes.
I live in Lafayette, so I'm right around the corner from you.
I live in Moraga. We're neighbors.
Okay, good. So you know the traffic situations. Question for you. So, we can talk offline. I have some other questions as well, but I guess the big one is, do you train any of the data using CGI? And is it only all contextual data you're receiving from the car? In other words, are you using any modeling engines offline to train data, or is it all from real data coming into the car?
Yeah, so we get the raw inputs from the sensor itself, and we apply our algorithm, which can be certified because we're not doing inference training model. And then with that, we're able to generate outputs that can feed into your motion control and planning. And as you know, I think you were asking that question because each customer that we engage with, they want the outputs to cater to their needs, which we can do. Right. So that's where the offline conversation can happen because you want it to be useful for you guys, right? For the current setup that you have. And that's where for some folks, they have certain demands and asks, and we can definitely work with you on that. And we have our proprietary software to run the raw data through and generate that output to you.
Great. Are you doing any automatic labeling just as part of your process, or is that all being done manually?
It's our software, so it's automatic. And we can definitely share with you in terms the details around that. But we need inputs from you as to what are you thinking about in terms of the ODD that you care about and the form factors and environments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn. Well, great presentation, Christine. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Question. So I really actually. Just rather, I want to agree with you that the annotation process is very expensive. I know that, and then also the data privacy part is actually awesome. How much you try to rate And in terms of, I know you raised about seven mil so far, you said? Hello, are you there?
It was static a little bit. Is it me?
Oh yeah, sorry.
So
Yeah, it's you. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, my internet was a little weird. So I heard, how much are you trying to raise? Is that the right question?
Yeah,
that I
that
heard?
was a question. Yes, correct.
Got it. Yeah, we have a healthy runway, and we're looking to raise 10 million with a minimum of 1 million as part of our next round. We are open to strategics. We have not taken any strategic for our seed round because we understand that the insights the audience here can give us is really big, and the network effect as well. So we are really looking for that connection and insight.
Okay, great. I do see some possible ways that we can work together, in other words, some industry as well. So maybe we can talk offline later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Christine from Blue Space. You just completed our training session, so thank you so much. So quick recap. So we heard from 5 companies: Greenwich HR, Hadron Industries, Sharp Focus, Streamit, and Blue Space AI. Let's meet real quickly our panelists and also our companies for the next session. I'll share my screen real briefly. So in addition to the panelists we had so far, we're being joined by Charles Grofer from Siemens Digital Industry Software. Bob Christopher is continuing with us from Diamond Edge Ventures, as is Nathaniel Asher Kraut from Starburst Aerospace. From Emerging Ventures Capital, Bennett Cole. From Walmart Global Tech, Anna Jarman is continuing. From Allstate Strategic Ventures, Reese Roeder. From the City of Mesa, Harry Meyer. Joe McRae from the 52nd Communications Squadron of the United States Air Force, and Ed Laverdew from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronaut. Companies pitching. We're going to be, it's a shorter session. We're going to be hearing from 4 different companies: Furhart Robotics, Tedu, Quantum Interface, and Hypertunnel. So let's go back for a second. Let's meet our panel really quickly. So on the panel, anybody new and joining the panel, feel free to unmic and introduce yourself.
I'll be happy to start. This is Bennett Cole. I'm with Emerging Ventures. We are an LA-based VC platform investing exclusively in emerging technology companies. Our funds generally invest in early stage opportunities. We define that as pre-seed to Series A rounds. We reserve about 20% of our investments for deep tech, the other 80% to more applied technology. And we have investments across the US, Canada, and Israel. And we're generally agnostic in regards to the technology sectors that we invest in. We've got close to 80 portfolio companies, and that represents, at last count, about 25 different tech subsectors. So that's who we are, and I am, and very appreciative to be involved today. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to have you here. Charles.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Charles Krufer. I'm part of the Siemens team, focusing on our simulation technologies and looking at opportunities to collaborate with startup companies, in the different fields of simulation, looking at ways to improve our products and improve the overall value to our end customers with, collaboration and integration of different software tools.
Awesome. Happy to have you here. Anybody else want to reintroduce themselves? We have great panelists from the previous session. I don't want to drive them crazy by having to say their names and what their interests are again and again. You can if you would like to, but if not, then we'll start with the sessions. Okay. So first up, what do we have, Yuval?
We have Eduardo Nieder from Hypertunnel. I'm going to start in just a sec.
So we'll queue up the slides, and then Eduardo, you'll be pitching. So just check your mic, make sure everything's okay.
Testing, making sure you can hear me.
Sounds great. So we're ready to go.
This is great. Hi, so my name is Eduardo Nieder. I'm the founder of Hypertunnel, and we're here to talk about teleporting experts anywhere. Next. The current problem that exists today is the loss of organizational knowledge. As organizations are challenged to train and retain staff that perform manually intensive tasks in dangerous and complex scenarios. Next. We built HyperTunnel, which is a mixed reality software platform to instantly teleport experts from the office to remote work sites, providing training and support. Next. We are the only solution that offer a digital twin of the worksite at the office and an avatar of the expert at the worksite to demonstrate what to do. We 3D scan the remote worksite to build an immersive digital twin, and this can be a store or it can be scanned in real time. And the digital twin provides a unique situational awareness to the expert. We also place a corresponding avatar of the expert at the remote worksite, providing unique human-like interaction to the frontline worker. The two locations are then synchronized and augmented using artificial intelligence, creating a shared space where experts and technicians can work next to each other. Next. In this example, is a field technician is assisted to restore service. The expert is at the headquarters using VR, immersed in the digital twin, and then teleported to the field using augmented reality. Next, and you can play the video.
To illustrate the power of the hypertunnel, imagine the power has been disrupted in a factory outside of Milwaukee. Shannon is a new hire stationed there. Yao is a plant manager based in Chicago and needs to walk the new hire through a sequence of steps. Shannon has just entered the building.
I'm in the electric room.
I can see you now.
Yao can then guide Shannon to the proper location, and he can point to the right control panel.
Come over this way. So we will operate over this control panel here.
Yao asks Shannon to take a picture of the panel, and the system matches the panel with the corresponding interactive 3D model.
First, can you take a picture of the control panel?
Sure. There you go.
All right. Here's what you're going to do. Press this button to choose the next screen. And observe the values on the yellow box.
As a result, the power to the Milwaukee factory has been restored quickly. The expert who remained in Chicago spent no time traveling and was exposed to no risk. Visit our website today to book a demo.
Next. So if you've seen, the benefit consists of better use of organizational knowledge, reduction in cost, increase in productivity, and better service. We use the power of VR to let the expert feel like they are the worksite. The expert can walk around, point at things, interact with objects, and get any perspective they choose. We use the power of AR to augment the remote worksite with 3D models and instructions, and place an avatar on site that can show gestures and body language in the right context to show how to do things. We deliver benefits that no video conference system can dream of. Next. So the enterprise XR application market is experiencing rapid growth. Conservative estimates show a global market of at least 7.6 billion by 2024. The use cases that we support represent 3.4 billion, and our initial target industry represent about 1.2 billion. Next. So there is competition providing augmented instructions, but none includes a digital twin at the office and an avatar at the worksite. Our main difference is the use of machine learning to train computer vision and match relevant 3D objects, and placing the avatar of the expert at the worksite to demonstrate what to do. Next. So we have 2 patents that have been issued, and we have a 3rd patent under review. Next. We offer a turnkey B2B solution. We provide a VR multi-user simulation classroom, as well as a mixed reality solution for remote support. Revenue is based on the size and complexity of the work sites, the number of users, and the required service level. We anticipate a typical deal to be about $400,000 in recurring revenue. Next.
30-second warning.
So we reach a multi-year agreement with the Department of Energy, place a pilot with the PSE&G, Electric Utility of New Jersey. We receive a Tech Connect Defense Innovation Award. We sign a CRADA with the Navy and recently launched a pilot with JIS. Next. So the team, we are a diverse team of engineers and business people. We have been executing together for 3 years. Next. We are looking to raise $3 million in seed funding to onboard additional enterprise clients, and we're also looking for corporate and public sector partners. Next. So that's Hypertunnel, teleporting experts anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you, Eduardo. Opening up the floor for questions. Go ahead, Anna.
So, and I apologize if you said this at the beginning, but so would this be hardware agnostic and people would have to own the assets, or you would be providing like the assets and the platform is the SaaS you're licensing?
So we're hardware agnostic. We run in iOS, Android, HoloLens, Vive, and the Oculus Quest. The assets can be either provided from CAD models, or we can scan them and on site, and then we can use the same CAD models or reduce objects to actually train machine learning to recognize the objects and match them on site.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just one other question. So what is the benefit? You said you're the only ones using a digital twin model versus others. So what is the benefit? What is the unique benefit to that?
So it's a situational awareness to the expert, right? So it's most of the augmented instructions, they will have augmented reality on site, but then the expert is behind a screen with a keyboard and a mouse and doesn't have necessarily the view of the site, doesn't have ability to point and realize what is happening in the surroundings. So that ability to create that situational awareness, we consider that is unique. And the same way is we are not only placing artifacts or holograms on site, giving instructions, is we can recreate an actually avatar that can guide users through a location. They can follow me, they can use body language, they can point at things. So that complete 3D situational awareness is the main advantage.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on the digital twin capability or the openness, I guess. Are you able to bring in additional physics or additional visualization capabilities on top of the CAD? Like, for example, looking at, I don't know, stress on a structural component or flow within a valve or something like that. Is that something that you're?
So we can bring all kind of media to the environment. So we can bring images, videos, additional 3D objects. They can be manipulated. The user can provide annotations and whatnot. Any kind of data feed that could be visualized in any way, like for example, show the color of the artifact in terms of show temperature, or any kind of additional data can be rendered on the shared space.
Okay.
Good.
Hi, Eduardo, great presentation. A quick question on your evolution as a company, just trying to get a sense for, looks like you've gotten some grants, you've gotten some prototypes done. Assuming that the 3 million is raised, just trying to understand when you see some of that ARR starting to formalize and come into reality.
So we currently have 2 pilots with enterprise, an electric utility and a railroad company. The sales cycles is long, right? So some of this technology has to be proven, has to be in a small scope. What we're looking is to get these funds to 2 elements, right? Is develop the back end of the system to make it more enterprise ready. So we are right now in TRL 7, as well as business development to fill up that pipeline and convert it. Our goal would be before we go to the next round, so in the next 12 months, we have converted any of these 2 existing pilots into an existing sort of recurring deal.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Bob, last question. You're on mute.
Sorry, the Zoom controls are not working for me. It's part of the Zoom gods. So my question was, do you have an ability to do any kind of 3-dimensional mapping to know the distance and size of objects? I mean, you're visually seeing it, but I'm wondering if you can do, because I think from that you can do, the computer vision models are based on obviously RGB data, but a lot of information is coming in now around 3-dimensional shapes and sizes. And that's now being mapped or fused into the CGI or the RGB data. I'm wondering, can you support that as part of your...
So we do have precision 3-dimensional information. So actually we can measure in 3D. And the training that we do in machine learning is actually 3D training. We take the object, we 3D scan it, and then we actually generate synthetic data from all the different angles. That actually is what we use to create sort of a 3D signature of the object and place it in the space. So we create the correspondence. So when you saw, for example, that panel appearing, is actually a 3D panel matching the 3D object itself. So we don't necessarily, we don't require any previous marker or any kind of anchoring. We can take this, again, the 3D model of the object, generate the 3D signature, and then match that 3D signature on site.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that was Hypertunnel. Next up is Farhad, and presenting will be Louis Simeonidis. I'm sure I said that wrong.
That was actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, well, there you go. So and presented for Tedu. We have a minor schedule change. We're hopefully going to be hearing from Tedu afterwards. So Farhad's presenting now, and then Tedu hopefully next. Floor is yours.
下午好，你能告诉我哪里可以买火车票吗？
你可以去位于你右侧的售票机那里买票。
啊，谢谢。
不客气。
El tren para la capital, ¿en dónde está? Mira, que lo necesito llegar, pero ya. Llevo tiempo buscando y todo eso. Yo no entiendo lo que quieres decir ahí, por favor.
¿A qué hora sale su tren?
Tenemos que llegar ahí a tiempo porque si no, no vamos a llegar al aeropuerto porque mi marido aquí se empeñó en llegar aquí sin Google Maps y estamos 15 minutos en tráfico. 15.
Ay, mira, tú con esos tacones que tienes, por eso llegamos tarde a todas partes.
¿Mis tacones míos?
Hay un tren que sale a las 12:10. ¿Será ese el suyo?
Sí, ese es.
¿Dónde queda?
Lo tiene a su derecha, en el andén 3. No se preocupe, tardará 2 minutos en llegar. El tren sale dentro de 6 minutos.
Ay, qué bien, ¿eh? Muchísimas gracias. Tal vez debería haberme casado contigo.
¿En serio? Siempre quise un anillo de compromiso. Les deseo un buen viaje.
¿Te estás coqueteando con mi mujer?
No.
No, pero... No entiendo qué...
Join us in creating a world where technology is more human.
All right. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm Louis with Farhad Robotics, and we are making the dream of social robots a reality. The time's very limited, so I will move quick. We have offices in Boulder, Colorado, as well as Stockholm, Sweden. To give you a little background, we were born in 2014 doing research at KTH Royal Institute of Technology. What we're doing is we're trying to take the science fiction out of social robots and make the dream a reality. If you can go to the next slide. Why are we doing that? We believe that social robots are going to be the next major user interface. Next slide. Our research has been focused on understanding human-to-human engagement and interaction, and what does that mean? And then how do you transfer that to a robot so that the robot can use those same natural expressions or can see a human and understand their expressions the way that we naturally communicate and work with each other. Next slide, please. We currently have 2 robots. We have the Misty robot as well as the Fur Hat robot. They're packed with a lot of different technology, everything from cameras, speakers, depth sensors, capacitive touch sensors, time of flight sensors, all the different technologies you need to create amazing human robot experiences. Next slide, please. We also provide a platform that gives you a framework with different skills, libraries, and tools so that you can rapidly build and deploy those solutions, as well as APIs into the hardware. And then we also have other tools such as, I'm sorry, if you go to the next slide. We also have a virtual robot so that you can build and test your solutions on the computer and then transfer those over to physical robots. We also provide tools such as a lip sync tool, a gesture capture tool, so you can create and capture your own expressions and lips, and then put those into libraries and put them onto the robots. Next slide, please. We also allow you to create virtual users, so you can create different scenarios. The robot can handle up to 10 different users simultaneously, and then you can dictate how the robot's gonna react or engage with those users depending on whether they're looking at the robot, looking away from the robot, how close or how far away they are. You can create different zones of engagement, things like that. Next slide, please. We also have a Wizard of Oz interface that allows you to control the robots remotely. This allows you to ensure that there's a good user experience while you're learning what the user needs are and you're learning how to automate those. Next slide, please. And then also one of the nice things about the Fur Hat robot with its digital face is you can provide different ethnicities, different genders, different ages. We even have a dog mask and a child mask for different scenarios. Next slide, please. How do we separate ourselves from the pack? We have a multi-purpose, multi-use platform, and we're enterprise ready versus a single use. We're a novelty product. Really gives you the power to create solutions for different scenarios. Next slide, please. Some examples of how it's being used out in the real world today. Merck is using it for a health screening booth where you can go in, get a health screening, and then get recommendations based on your screening. Next slide. Tengai has created a digital recruiter to take the bias out of recruiting. And you can do that first interview with the robot, or you could do it on your phone with a virtual robot. Next slide, please. Deutsche Bahn has created information kiosks and train stations in Germany and throughout Asia. Next slide, please.
30-second warning.
Yeah. And then on the research side, universities and institutions are using it all across the world for different reasons. I saw the Air Force is on here. The US Air Force Academy and the Air Force Office of Scientific Research are using it to study trust and influence with digital agents. Disney's looking at how do you service customers in theme parks. Things like University of Tennessee doing brain-computer interface. The list goes on in terms of research. Next slide, please. What we're looking for is corporate partners or government agencies to build out commercial solutions or conduct research projects with. Next slide, please. And to tell you a little bit about the team, as I mentioned, we're in Boulder and Stockholm, and we're comprised of specialists across many domains, everything from psychology to AI to robotics, and all the things that you need for amazing human robot experiences. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome, very cool. Okay, opening up the floor to questions. Go ahead, Bob, you can lead.
Wow, this is uniquely designed for me. So Louis, I don't think I've ever met you before, but I know Ted Larson of Logic and the guys who help you design the Misty robot, along with Nightscope and everything else. They're good friends of mine. So I
nice.
work with them.
Nice
Yeah,
to meet you.
yeah, nice to meet you. So my background is actually launched a company called Ugobi. We made a robot called Pleo, which is one of the first social robots. First, there was Sony Aibo, and then we came out with Pleo. My co-founder created the Furby, which was arguably is kind of first social robot, right?
Yeah.
So
Who is that?
Caleb Chung.
Okay, I know. I used to work with one of their other partners. I forget the name now. It was so many years ago.
Dave,
okay.
somebody. There was Dave. There's a couple other guys too.
Yeah. But anyway.
And I also did Jibo. So Jibo, I was part of.
Nice.
So I mean, Jibo was
you know the space.
predecessor to what you're doing. I mean, Jibo just didn't have the face you have, and I mean, you've obviously done things beyond what Jibo is doing. But yeah, I totally get the space. I think it's wonderful, and I think what I'm seeing with the way you're evolving the tech, I'm seeing more common use case opportunities beyond this, the kind of the cuteness of having something on your desk or your house that's going to tell you the weather or chat with you about something. I think that's been the challenge with this kind of robots, is they get kind of this cute factor, and then people think about them as like toys. Even like even Alexa, people just don't really take Alexa quite seriously. It's like there's something missing there, and that the anthropomorphic relationship is kind of missing. But that's what Jibo was trying to do. Then obviously, and then you guys are doing the same thing: the anthropomorphic moving of the head and the face and the gestures. I think that's super important. But I like the use cases, and I want to talk to you offline about those, because I think there's some really interesting, questions for me, but also opportunities.
Yeah, that'd be great. Feel free, or I'll try to reach out to you after. I'd love to talk to you and dig in.
Sounds good. Thanks. I'll put my email in the chat window for you, by the way.
I have a question for you, Louis. When you deploy a solution like this, well, two questions. One, do you have some use cases where it really is all virtual, with the robot? And then my second question has to do with, is there AI involved with learning, the questions and responses that people have, so make it more adaptable? Those are my two questions.
Yeah, so on the virtual side, one of the examples was with Tengai, where they're using the robot on the digital recruiter, where you can do it physically or virtually. So that would be one example. And then I'm sorry, what was the last question?
What I'm thinking about is, over time, there's going to be certain responses, certain questions that, repetitively come up. Is there AI here that will allow the robot to adapt over time to what the to the responses, if you will?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things on the AI side, on the conversation side. There are parts where the AI is going from the database, and it's able to sometimes create the answers that it might not already have been structured or created, or it can also funnel those unknown questions into a bucket where you can then go and create automation for it later. Also, because of the APIs, you can really extend it and use any third-party platform, any cloud service, anything like Google Dialogflow or Microsoft partnership services, things like that, where you can include AI into the flow from other parties. So it doesn't have to be ours.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any last question for Louis? I guess not. Louis, thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys.
So that was Louis from Furhat, and we're going back to Tedu, and pitching will be Nicola Bates, who's founder and CEO. Nicola, you want to test your mic? See it's all good?
Yes, hello everyone. Can you guys hear me and see me?
Great, wonderful. The floor is yours as soon as we get the slides going. There you go.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicola Bates. I'm the founder and CEO of Tidu, and we're a plug and play infrastructure that enables institutions or organizations to deliver learning support surrounding their classroom or training. Go ahead, next slide. So let's talk about the environment in education and learning loss. Learning loss right now is at an all-time high and it's only getting worse. And yes, it's been escalated due to COVID, but this actually has been a trend that's been trending forward even before COVID. The K through 12 students in the beginning of their educational pathways on average are losing about 4 to 5 months of learning loss per grade. And this is only compounding and becoming a serious issue for students entering the college atmosphere. About 65% of students, and this is a statistic that's before COVID. We don't know what the updated statistic is yet, but it's only going to be worse. 65% of college students require remedial courses to just be qualified into entry-level college courses. Remedial courses are additional courses that are like high school courses that the college offers that don't count towards accreditation of the university degree, but they still cost the student a lot of time and money. And that's why of the 55% of students dropping out of college, 30% of them are actually dropping out within the first year because of this compounding of time spent on remedial courses and expenses. So there's clearly a disconnect between what students need to succeed in learning, and what institutions are equipped to offer. And this compounding learning loss is only going to continue to snowball as potential recruits or students get closer to employment, then passing on this learning loss problem to the, whether it's the job, the government, whoever ends up being their end employer and trainer. Next slide. So what is learning support? Learning support systems are programs that are used to increase academic achievement of students outside the classroom while they're taking the accredited class, targeting those who are at risk of falling behind. And research has shown that learning support success rates are about 2 to 3 times higher than taking the remedial education route, those auxiliary classes. And that kind of makes sense because if you look to the right, these are key facts about the retention of materials. About one after the class or the course has been taking, less than half of the information on average is lost. And then after a day, 70% of what was taught is lost. And then after 6 days, 75%. So there's clearly a need for an infrastructure that surrounds the training or the classroom educational environment to keep students consistently engaged in the material and there to help them. Next slide. So since we've identified learning support programs are very effective and important, how are they currently operated on institutions and organizations? Well, they're really inefficient. These different types of learning is siloed within their departments, making it very difficult for the organizations to collaborate and engage. They have little to no software that's being used to facilitate these programs, making it super uneasy for students to interact the way they want to, both online and in person, which is important in today's educational environment of remote learning. And because there's little to no software, it requires a tremendous amount of manual resources, going to hiring administrators instead of content facilitators, making it super expensive and not easy to scale as more and more students are needing support. Go ahead. So that's where we developed the learning support system. Our Tidu LSS is a cloud-based infrastructure that centralizes and personalizes the provisions of extracurricular learning support throughout the whole entire organizational ecosystem to get learners the support they need 24/7. Next slide. So we make these programs more efficiently. We're a plug and play SaaS platform that's purpose built and security compliant to administer learning support across multiple departments, making it super accessible for learners to get the help that they need, both online and in person, dedicated to their organization. Because we integrate into existing IT infrastructure and automate about 90% of the managerial process of these learning support centers, we can save institutions a tremendous amount of time and money. And by being a cloud-based infrastructure, we're able to integrate a lot of machine learning and AI to help detect what are the type of issues that students are having and optimize instruction and curriculum for these different departments. Next slide. So just a couple of the features of our infrastructure. I won't get into depth since there's so many, but a lot of this is geared towards automation of the managerial process. And by making it cloud-based, again, we're able to collect a lot of analysis and feedback for the departments. Next slide. So what is that type of
30-second warning.
How many seconds?
30.
Oh, perfect. So some of the actionable feedback is like, where the students are struggling, what do they need to know more about, best practices, recommendations, performance variations between professors in the curriculum, KPI tracking, and optimized funding. Next slide. So case use, for example, we use the Air Force training. Cadets can be automatically enrolled into this infrastructure, and this infrastructure personalizes the support to the learning pathway. By their interactions, we can get full-on analysis tied to their data points, background, demographics, ethnicity, what courses are struggling on, optimization of availability of what that learning support looks like for them, and then the accessibility, making it super easy. Next slide. So just to show you the cost savings that we had, one of the universities in California that we work with saved about $300,000 in 7 months on a small department, just through autonomous management, centralizing the infrastructure, collecting the data and analysis, and the reporting. Next slide. So just a quick overview of our progress for the company. We have 10 more universities coming under contract right now. We're a 20-person team. We've privately raised $4 million. We're expanding into K through 12. And some of our partners and integrations are IBM, Endeavor, California State University System, University of Missouri System. We work with all the biggest in the ed tech industry. And then next slide. And then the reason we're here is now that we've successfully entered higher education marketplace, we're scaling pretty fast. We're looking to create public-private partnerships within the following areas. So creating that overarching umbrella of government support for their educational materials, public education data provider by tapping into our infrastructure, and then using that same type of tool we have for a higher education and pivoting it for the K through 12 to get the students in the younger grades the support they need to stay on track. And I think that's the last slide. Yep. Again, my name is Nicola Bates, and then I'll put in the chat my contact information if you guys are interested in learning more.
Thank you, Nicola.
Sorry if that went a little over, guys.
You're all good. And our first question.
So maybe I misheard you, but it sounded like you said that there weren't many systems out there, and I guess so. This is something we've looked into in the corporate space, and it appears there are like something like 700 plus like learning management systems available. And one of the reasons we know that is because corporates are now sort of taking over some of the responsibility of education. Because people are, because we're doing student loans and people are doing alternative education, not using university, using like Google, for example, has come up with their own credentialing system. So, so I guess, am I misunderstanding what yours is versus what all of those other systems are doing?
Yeah, so LMS platforms, learning management systems, are in-class content facilitation platforms. We're the platform for outside the classroom to get the support the students need. So we actually integrate in our tools for Blackboard, Canvas, Ellucian, and all the other LMS platforms. We integrate into their infrastructure to provide data to the curriculums of the students that are taking the classes. So think of like LMS as a professor managing the classroom experience for the student. LSS, learning support system, is how does that student get the support they need outside their curriculum and the professor.
Right. And sorry, I guess LMS is
there's a lot of LSSs, LMSs, and SISs. Yeah. So, but LMS is a core component of our integration. That's where we derive all the data from.
Okay. And I guess, so how is yours different from all of what exists?
So those are just for the classroom experience with that professor. Like, think of universities having academic support tutoring centers, writing centers, supplemental instruction programs, peer mentoring, peer tutoring. All of these fall outside an LMS. These are all like manually operated departments on the college campus. So our platform automates the management of the academic support center so that the budget is not being burned up of like 15 people checking emails and Excel spreadsheets and calendar apps and all of these different things. It automates all of that so that they can use the budget to hire more content facilitators. So imagine like 11 o'clock at night, a student needs help in the library, or the student doesn't understand something from their training. Our infrastructure provides them the mechanism to get the support from the school, versus the LMS is just keeping track of like, did you turn in your test? Did you see the update from the professor about needing to have this particular worksheet done? So this is outside the classroom experience, but we tie the data back into the classroom experience. So the professor can see like, okay, well, I had these type of students were asking this type of question outside. This is a reoccurring question that keeps being asked in academic support. Maybe I should address it before the next test is taken. So we can create those flags so the professor can see this is the type of help the students are needing outside my classroom.
Interesting. Have you ever thought about using this in a corporate environment beyond like K through 12?
Yes. So actually, we're right now designing a version of our infrastructure for what's called the International Center for Supplemental Instruction. So by chance, it's the #1 methodology for academic support. They have the highest success rate. If you take supplemental instruction, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a full letter grade or higher in performance in the class. So that whole organization with 1,700 universities that are attached to that university organizations, they're going to be using our infrastructure to facilitate training, support, and mentoring. So that's like our first pilot of taking it out of higher education into the corporate environment. And you could use it for mentoring too, peer mentoring, peer tutoring. So there's a lot of different ways, but most importantly, all the data that's being facilitated through the infrastructure is being collected and analyzed so that like administrators can see how come there's a lot of students, for example, that need help in Calculus 101, just using math as an example with Mr. Brown when, you know, Mrs. Red is teaching Calc 101 and doesn't have the students needing as much as help. Well, that you can deep dive and see what are the type of questions being asked, what are the demographics of this ethnicity, what is their schedules looking like. You can go really in depth to see are there trends to why students are struggling more with this professor compared to another professor taking the same curriculum, and then what type of feedback are they receiving, which then we tie into the LMS to see did that feedback increase their performance or was there nothing that changed. And then they can replicate the best practices in the curriculum. So this creates a very dynamic curriculum based on data, real-time data, not a static curriculum that professors continuously need to curve to make adjustments for the performance not being on par with the requirements of the university.
Awesome.
Sorry for that verbal vomit.
We have time for one last question. Bennett, have you take it?
Right. Hey, thanks, Cole. Great presentation. Question for you. You mentioned that you've raised $4 million to date. Just wondering from a capital and liquidity standpoint, is there any need for additional capital at this point, or is it more, as you said, just looking for some partnerships and collaborations?
Yeah, we're fully funded into our Series A round. We predict our Series A will probably happen Q1 or Q2 of next year. Right now, it's just expanding our market reach and opportunity. Obviously, higher education, it took a little bit of time just because of the nature of the industry to do pilots and to show case study. We are interested in doing public-private relationships and go into corporate training as well. And then once we kind of tie in those pilots, we'll be in a position where we comfortably feel that we can raise a Series A at the kind of the points we're looking for.
Great. Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah. And we have we're privately funded too through family offices that are very passionate about education. So our Series A will be the first time a VC gets involved with our organization.
Gotcha.
So thank you for your time, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicola. All right. So that rounds it up. We have one last pitch, quantum interface, and pitching will be Jonathan Josephson, who is the founder and CTO. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi. Good seeing you.
You too. So we'll queue up the slides, and as soon as it is, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for this. By the way, while we're waiting, a pitch for Eagle. You guys have been great to work with.
Love you all. Anybody who doesn't know, Eagle Point Funding is our sister company. They're a grant consultancy. They specialize in non-dilutive funding from government sources. Of course, Deep Tech Showcase completes the picture on the other side with business development services.
Should I show my deck or are you showing it?
Yeah, Jonathan, you can go ahead and show yours.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Let me get this ready. And I'll start with this. And let me see, I need to move my the Zoom controls out of the way so I can start from slideshow. And there we go. You see it?
Good to go.
All right. Thank you all. We're Quantum Interface, and what we do is we really have revolutionized the human experience through an entirely new user interface. We apply this to multiple different things in multiple industries, but I'm going to really focus on one after I explain the technology. Currently, the GUI, the graphic user interface, is still the user interface of today. And it's based upon you touch something and then it opens. What we do is we actually do a vector analysis of the user emotion in real time, and then that allows us to understand the user intent. We cause the objects to respond to that intent intelligently. They understand the user intent, so they see you walking towards it and they run to you and say, we love you. And then what we do is we measure that relationship and what we call an interaction confidence. And by doing that, we understand the relationship between the user and the content. We've won several awards. I just mentioned one that we love here, that we were named the best XR training product in the last 50 years from multiple users in the Air Force. We have a global portfolio on this user interface. In fact, some of the things you may have heard earlier about how user interacts and moves in 3D space and Minority Report, that's even our older patents. This new generation of smart interaction is the next generation, and Gartner awarded us the best HMI in the world with that. So I'm going to ask you all to do something to interact with me for 3 seconds, and that is, I would like you all to keep your eyes open, and I'd like you to listen for every sound around you. Ready, go. Okay, that's all. I didn't really want to know what you heard. Addition. And the reason that you did that is so you could activate the middle part of your brain, because that's the processing part. And that's the part that can gather content and information and understand it. How do we superfire that part of the brain? We do it with dynamic motion of the user, dynamic motion of the objects, and then the objects have to respond with intelligence so that our brain thinks they're sentient. When this happens, we create this environment that we understand and retain information at the highest levels, far higher than anything else that exists today. These are some of the companies that we work with and that license our technology. And then these are some examples, or some of the products that we do. We build systems for web portals for biopharma and biomedical, such as Merck, Takeda. We build their flagship products, their #1 products. We help build products for accessibility. That's for people with disabilities. We also are building the UI for the new lenses for Vuzix. We provide the first true hands-free interactions for HoloLens and gaze controls. All of that is we love to do. But this one product that we built just recently with the Air Force, we call QVIX, Quantum Interactive Virtual Experience. We were awarded a phase 1, then a phase 2, then it went directly to licenses, and then they asked us to build it offline for operations and to handle classified operations. We also were just awarded a TACFI. This is a self-authoring tool, and we have this beautiful technology, but it took the brains of real users with the Air Force to make a winning product. And think of it as PowerPoint, YouTube, TikTok, and XR all combined into one. Except make it interactive, make it predictive, and make it easy enough to build your own lesson in 15 minutes, and then it's immediately ready to consume on a PC or in a VR headset. You can see the list of users on the left side here. With the exception of the 149th and the 355th, all of these are in the last 9 months. And this doesn't include, they want to move us to 70 Spark cells over the next 12 months. And they want to go, if possible, they want to make us a program of record in the next 2 years. And that's just for this product in the Air Force. We're now moving with SOCOM. We're using this technology. We just presented for the HEECS program, and we're going to present with, it looks like we'll present with the AFSOC group. We also won
30-second warning.
We also won the AFWorks Challenge with Dynepic for Motar to help create that platform. And the beauty of this is you can take a lesson, you can learn it, and you can do it in minutes. It uses all of this technology that I've expressed, and it's immediately ready. So think about taking training and taking XR synthetic training environments, move them all the way to the left so that they don't no longer use computer-based trainings or PowerPoints. Instead, you immediately get an interactive lesson. Thank you very much. We are looking for customers, and we are just looking for our first, probably our first A round. We are friends and family funded. We're revenue generating, and we need money for engineers to meet the opportunities that we're being asked to do right now. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Questions for Jonathan?
How is the product licensed, or how do you engage with your customers?
We can license it by users. It's easier to go with an enterprise license because what we find is that they start off with 5, 15, 50 licenses. Then within 3 weeks, they want 200 licenses, and then they want it to go to the whole wing. The University of Buffalo wants to use this for the law school. The medical school and 27 other universities have just come to us and said we want to use it. We actually are trying to figure out that pricing model right now because it's exploded in front of us. We also have like a certain food industry that's, say, the #1 food industry that's come to us because they want to be able to train people in a matter of minutes to begin their jobs. And the good part is the experts get to make the training. We can provide all the help they need to get started with it, but literally you learn how to use it in 30 minutes. And after that, you can make your own lessons and you can consume them on your own.
So how out of the box is it? I mean, does it add on to any software package, or do you need to customize it? There's some kind of integration to interface with the graphics?
At this point, it's built. It's sort of like PowerPoint. We give you tools. We give you this screen and this ability where you start with this canvas material. Right now, it's 360 video. When you use real images, the brain is willing to accept that and drop its disbelief. We get a 25% bump in all training by using real content rather than virtual content. And then you start with the 360 video and we build this digital layer that's completely interactive, and you drag and drop and you put it in there, and it's audio, text, highlighting, videos, extra videos, quizzes, and we're measuring the user confidence the whole way. It's not just did they do it, it's how confident when they did it, when they do it as well. So that's the core. In the TACFI, they are asking us the next 4 months to make it work with 2D videos and images as well. So you can take about any content you've got and immediately turn it into a deep, immersive, rich, interactive experience.
Jonathan, does that mean you're looking to raise the full 1.8 million?
What, sir? What'd you say?
You mentioned TACFI. Are you looking to, but you didn't mention a dollar amount for your raise.
It's actually not the StratFi. They want to follow on with the StratFi. So They said, let's do a TACFI first. That TACFI is about a 1.1 million TACFI. We're about halfway. Well, we started with the phase 3. They awarded it. You know, they've been really slow with the contracting. So we should finish out that TACFI in the next 6 months.
Okay. Charles, you had a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, just curious on also kind of the demonstration capabilities. I mean, how for your sales process, how can you demonstrate it on people's on different environments?
One of the easiest ways, we can just have a Zoom call and let you see it, or we can give you a version of it to try out and walk you through it and have you up and running in like 5 minutes.
Okay, that sounds very good.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd be interested to explore that further.
Yeah, we would love to. It's gotten heavy pull inside of the Air Force. We just had our first contacts through SoftWorks. We pitched at Tech Tuesday, and then now we've had several responses from SOCOM asking for it. We really haven't even touched the Navy or the Army in this. We're just starting to make contacts. Really, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. We're thankful, but we have that issue of we need to keep up with the demand, because that's just as bad as not having a product. So that's why we're looking at, we need to hire about another 7 or 8 engineers, and that's full stack from front end, back end, all the way through Unity, and then a graphic designer as well, just to keep up with what's current and what we've been told to foresee in the next 12 months.
Where are you based?
Austin, Texas.
A quick question for you. Was this derived at a university, or where did this tech, where was it created? And I'm really interested also, just kind of, are you supporting third-party companies like RealAware and others that are attempting to create that VR experience for working environments?
Good question. Two different ones. We actually built it all in-house. It's all of our IP, and we maintain all the IP rights. Then we went to AFWorks. 5 days later, we had our first contract. It moved that fast with MOUs from 3 pilot training next, the 149th and the 49th, and then the 355th. They all joined in. And that phase 1 was 90 days. We immediately went to phase 2, finished that in 6 months, and immediately went to license. It was a web-based version, but the cost on Amazon, and by the way, we work with all the CTOs and C-suite level, all the way through top engineers of HTC, Amazon, Samsung, LG. All those guys know us. We know them because we're at the top of the tech stack on the UI. And your second question, General Miller right now with at NDC with the Pentagon is asking us to go on the consortium, the CSTE consortium, because there's a lot of users of our technology which are knowingly or unknowingly all over our IP. And so they're wanting to talk to us about how that would work to not only use our IP, but all that stuff is primitive. It is not advanced like this. So it's looking at what can we do to give an SDK and a bump with the 700 other companies in the DoD that are currently using XR technologies. So that discussion is ongoing, but like everything else in the government, it's not super fast. It's week by week, month by month.
Awesome. Any last question for Jonathan? Okay, well,
just by the way, if I can say one thing, last thing, we are working in the IoT industry as well. For instance, the MTA has asked us to build that user information dashboard to be able to navigate through all the sensor data for big data, which is the same thing the Pentagon wants with ABMS and JADC2 and command and controls. Anytime you want to see through that big data and navigate through it, you have to make it usable so it goes from black to white data. That is our specialty. And that is really the big play in the future of how databases work. And that is something I didn't say here, but we would love to partner with companies in that area to really change how the big databases work all the way from full stack through the user experience. Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So just a quick recap of who we heard from in this session. We heard from Furhat Robotics, Tedu Quantum Interface, and Hypertunnel. These were our wonderful, amazing panelists who joined us for the last session. Charles from Siemens, Bob from Diamond Edge Ventures, Bennett from Emerging Ventures Capitals, Asher from Starbucks Aerospace, Anna from Walmart Global Tech, Reese from Allstate Strategic Ventures, from the city of Mesa, Harry, Joe McRae from the 52nd Communication Squadron, and Ed Laverdue from the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. We also had previous sessions. We had 5 companies pitching here: Star Focus, Hadron Industries, Blue Space AI, Streamit, Greenwich HR, and a set of amazing panelists for this as well. And then 5 companies in the first open topic session. So thank you everybody who joined us and came out, and if the panelists were asking insightful and deep questions, and for engaging with these interesting startups. And the startups were pitching. I shouldn't say startups. A lot of these companies are very well established, but emerging tech companies that did a great job of coming out and presenting. So thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to myself, Josh at deeptechshowcase.com, or Asher at deeptechshowcase.com, and also Yuval at deeptechshowcase.com. Thank you, and stay tuned for our upcoming event, which is Microelectronics on March 31st. And that is all. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world.